Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Nationalist Review, coming to you from the middle of clown world, where apparently law and justice are things of the past. We will talk about the Kate Steinle verdict and why this sets us off so much here in a second. But, of course, I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Nick Fuentes. How's it going, man?
It's going well. Here we are, bright and early. It's not really bright and early. It's like noon over here. It's almost 1 actually over here, but
yeah, it's like overcast and early here.
Yeah, but it's a beautiful Saturday afternoon. How are you doing, my friend?
Good. Well, in kind of a change of circumstance, I was the one who was getting up against the clock here. I was up real late working on my new video that's on my channel about the whole Kate Steinle situation and the shooting and the miscarriage of justice that occurred over in San Francisco. So you can go check that video out. I will include a link to that video in the description here for you to go check out. And I do encourage you to watch it. It essentially goes over what we're going to talk about here today. But so before we get started, before we jump into the content, we have some housekeeping. We have some updates for you guys. We have our merch. The mugs are up for sale. We are over halfway sold out of the mugs. I think the first time we announced them on the show was last Saturday on this podcast. And in a week, we're already over halfway sold out. So these things are going fast. Within a week, they'll be sold out. In fact, we're not going to be shipping until the 7th. Our new updated shipping date is the 7th, which is actually earlier than we expected, which was the 10th. So actually plan on the 8th for these things to get shipped out. But we might actually be sold out of these things by the time that rolls around and have to do a second order of merch here. So the iconic 16-ounce America First mug is for sale over at amfirstmedia.com/shop. Pick it up. We are going to be sold out definitely by Christmas. We'll be sold out of these. So go check that out for sure. Of course, follow First Media on Twitter, and you could follow us there. If I were to be physically removed from Twitter, there's a chance I may reappear somewhere else. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see about that. You can also check amfirstmedia.com for new articles. We have new articles that will be going up there on a regular basis. I've been talking to some new writers that we're actually going to be bringing on for the site. Some guys who used to write for financial blogs and news sites and everything. So we'll be putting out some print content there as well. Not only the audio content and video content, but print content now too. And join our Discord server, which is linked below. You can check out our Discord for all kinds of fun stuff. Oh, always a fun discussion in there. I'll be working on something on the computer and see the little Discord notification pop up in the bottom right and see some kind of heated discussion going on in the general thread over at the Discord. And finally, if you want to watch this show live, you want to watch the recording of Nationalist Review live, you want to participate in the mailbag for Nationalist Review, which we'll do in the second hour, go on over to patreon.com/America First Media and become one of the paywall subscribers. Help us out on the paywall. For $7 a month, you get to participate in the mailbag and a special Discord role, where you can also participate in special Discord hangouts. We're actually going to be doing one of those this Sunday. Nick and I will on the Discord channel. And for $15 a month, you can watch every Saturday show live, which is a great perk that I know a lot of people enjoy. Some people who aren't even paying members enjoy that because people pass the link around. Admonished, the free rider problem is coming up. So check that out as well. We do appreciate that support. Helps us keep being able to do this, which we do every Saturday and Wednesday for you guys. So, Nick, I'm rustled.
Why are you rustled?
My Jimmy meter has been set to maximum rustle.
About the Kate Steinle verdict. Right?
Yes. Well, yeah, what else would it be about? This is really freaking annoying. Okay. So for those of you who don't know, I was surprised. We talk all the time about how insane things are, how deep we are into this clown country, but this was just another layer of face paint on American clown world. Okay. Like, I did not know we could actually sink this far, but hey, surprise, surprise, we have. So this was a story out of San Francisco. For those of you who don't remember, for those of you who may not remember this, during the presidential election, one of the cases that Donald Trump was talking the most about with regard to immigration was the case of this girl named Kate Steinle. She was a 32-year-old. She looked pretty young. She was kept herself in good condition. She was a 32-year-old woman from San Francisco, California, which is, of course, ding, 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 yes, a sanctuary city. And she was walking on the pier, Pier 14, down there in San Francisco with her father, when all of a sudden, boom, she was shot by someone who was later determined to be an illegal immigrant. Now, we'll get into the particulars of this case here in a second, and just why this is so unusually rustling. But the illegal shot her. He admitted to shooting her, and now, 2 years later, the Justice Department, the judicial system, has let him go free. So, Nick, what was your reaction when you first heard about this case?
Well, I wasn't really surprised, and this is just how it goes. I mean, this is what we can expect in this country. And I don't know if you looked at the jury, you looked at who decided this verdict.
What was the breakdown of the jury?
I don't remember exactly what the breakdown was, but it wasn't exactly favorable in terms of people who understand what's going on here. And it wasn't surprising. It just goes to show that in this country today, in California, you'll be killed by somebody who should have been deported, who's been deported 5 times, I believe it was, on his way to a 6th deportation. I mean, somebody who should have even been in the country.
7-time felon. 7-time felon.
I mean, this is right. I mean, stacks on stacks in terms of how many times he was deported, how many times he's committed crimes. He's out there. This person is on the loose to kill your daughter, your sister, whoever. You get killed, and the guy doesn't even get charged. The guy, and the verdict, like that the gun accidentally went off or something. I mean, it just clown.jpg, clownworld.jpg. I mean, bad enough you have this guy in the country. Bad enough he's out there acquiring weapons, killing people, but then he doesn't even get charged.
Yeah. No, were the drops coming through there? Did you hear the?
No, I wasn't hearing the drop.
Oh. Hold on, because I had this meme. Oh, did it play now?
No, I'm not hearing it.
Oh, whatever. My clown horn, my honk clown horn didn't play for Clown World. But yeah, so the forensics of this case and the narrative in this case. So normally, what would you expect? Like I don't think most lay people really understood just how absurd this was, because you would expect, right, that the defense attorney would say, "Oh no, he wasn't there. He didn't shoot anybody," or "Oh, maybe it was an accident. Maybe he was, handling the gun. He accidentally shot the girl. It was a misfire, right?" And you would expect the prosecutor to come out and say, "No, he murdered this girl in cold blood." So this was the most insane thing about it. One of the most insane things. Surveillance video shows Garcia Zarate running away from the scene of the crime. So he was obviously there. After his arrest, investigators found gunshot residue on his right hand. So for the fans of forensic files out there, you know about the gunshot residue thing, right? Clearly he had fired a gun. Clearly he just recently fired a firearm. And so here are the narratives. Prosecutor said Garcia Zarate was playing his own secret version of Russian roulette and deliberately fired into the unsuspecting crowd on the pier. Okay. Sure, I guess. And defense attorney Matt Gonzalez, I wonder where his loyalties are, said Garcia Zarate found the gun at the pier. He said it was wrapped in cloth, and when Garcia Zarate unwrapped it, the gun accidentally discharged. Now, Garcia Zarate originally told police that he stepped on the gun. "Oh, I just stepped on it," and it went off. Now, this maybe makes sense if we're talking about some beat up, run down, high point ghetto blaster pistol that you just found in the hood, right? Maybe you could have some kind of accidental discharge. But no, this gun was stolen 4 days prior from a Bureau of Land Management vehicle, a BLM truck. And not to be confused with the trucks that run over BLM protesters, but a BLM truck, Bureau of Land Management. And this is a federally issued firearm. This is maintained in federal records. This is a weapon that has to pass all kinds of federal inspections. So the likelihood of this thing just going off in an accidental discharge, next to nothing. Okay, so those two narratives are clearly false. The Russian roulette narrative is clearly unbelievable. Now, what Zarate admitted to doing, he says in police interrogation, he admits to firing the gun and said he was aiming at a seal. Okay, so we're supposed to believe that, which one of these stories is true from the defense? The defense presented simultaneously 3 different stories. That alone should be enough to let you know that this is not what it appears to be. But it's insane. It's insane. And the jury had the opportunity to reduce the charge. The jury had the opportunity to convict on involuntary manslaughter. Involuntary manslaughter. The standard for intent there's no intent required. No intent is required in involuntary manslaughter cases, unlike second-degree murder, which does require intent, or first-degree murder, which also requires intent and planning. Now, I only took like a couple semesters of criminal justice here at the university. I'm not some like expert criminologist. This is very common knowledge, but this guy admitted that his actions led to her death. This guy admitted to involuntary manslaughter, and because of the jury wanting to get back at President Trump, because of the jury wanting to stand up for immigrant rights, as the defense attorney explicitly said in the press conference after the case here, nothing happens. Nothing happens.
Right. Well, and that's what it's about. I mean, that's fundamentally what this is about is, I mean, the entire immigration policy, our entire position on immigration in this country is about prioritizing these quote-unquote immigrant rights over the rights of the people, our right to life, our right to justice. I mean, that's, I think, a microcosm. I mean, how much more symbolic can you get? Then you have someone like Kate Steinle, who's clearly, I mean, that was clearly involuntary manslaughter. You know, guns don't discharge by accident. That's the biggest myth in the world. You know, it's not like on television where you drop a gun and it goes off. My parents were firearms instructors for years, and guns don't just accidentally go off. You have to squeeze the trigger. I mean, that's the biggest myth about firearms that exists. Anybody who owns one knows this. Mm-hmm. And that he's not convicted because, like you said, they want to stick it to President Trump. I mean, that is the other side of the country right now. Democratic mayors, Democratic governors, I guess this jury. And what it comes down to is just they place the privileges of immigrants over the rights of American citizens. And that's not a partisan thing. That's not an ideological thing. That is just foundational. That is axiomatic for what a country should strive for, what is just in a country. You know, we have a government, we have a judicial system, we have a social contract in this country between ourselves and the federal and state governments that says, you know, we give up certain rights and responsibilities. You may remember this, you know, if you have your libertarian sensibility still, James, but, you know, we give up certain rights to our government in terms of they have jurisdiction over this country. They have, the authority to use force. Yeah,
monopoly and use of force, yeah.
Right, exactly. And in exchange for that, they're supposed to protect us. They're supposed to make sure that we're safe from each other, from foreign invaders, and that entire thing just implodes. I mean, if you don't have a government that's protecting the people, there's no reason to have a government. There's no reason to pay taxes. That's the foundational reason. Like, we figured this stuff out 300 years ago. That's, you know, you have people that collect your taxes and people who are just generally assholes, you know, cops and whatever, you know, people at the DMV, like that whole thing exists, having to deal with this shit so that you don't get killed like Kate Steinle did.
Yeah.
But in clown country, that's for
no. The system now for middle class Americans, for your average American, is you pay like a good sizable amount of your income in taxes. You have to make all these sacrifices to the government, sacrifice your, I mean, you get the government watching your cell phone. You got, you know, the government spying on your webcam, watching you do whatever you do in your own home, you know, listening to you with the Amazon Echo. You got CIA chips in the Google, you know, played it with, God, I sound like Alex Jones, but this is all true. I mean, this is all like admitted to happening, right? Like, we live in a heavily surveilled country. You can't walk down the street without being on a couple surveillance cameras. You can't drive your car around town without being on traffic cameras and having your license plate tracked and your motion tracked. We live in this surveillance state that is sold to us to keep us safe. But what happens when there's a very basic case where this illegal alien who should not even be here, dude, this guy, deportation is too good for this guy. Okay, deportation is too humane for this guy. He's coming to our country 5 times. He needs to go back by whatever means necessary. And it's insane. It is insane that it shouldn't be like this, man. Like we should not have to live in a country that literally treats illegal aliens that murder Americans better than the Americans they murdered, and where people were defense attorneys, state employed defense attorneys. This guy's a public defender. You know, this wasn't like Perry Mason coming out to get this guy off. You know, this was just some Joe Schmo public defender attorney making $40,000 a year in San Francisco. And these guys are coming out and saying that this is a victory for immigrant rights. This is a victory for the rights of the oppressed. How about the girl who was literally oppressed to death by this illegal alien murdering her? Like I think that's a little bit more substantial oppression than having Donald Trump say, "Oh, this guy's an illegal and has to go back." It's totally upside down. Our country is totally upside down, where we care more, and this is happening all over the West. This is happening in America. This is happening definitely in the UK as well, which we'll talk about here in a little bit in this hour, where the rights of the people who are destroying society are given more preference, are seen as more important than the people whose societies they are destroying. Where the rights of the Muslim migrants, where the rights of the illegal aliens are put above, and the priorities of those people are put above the priorities of the people who built the civilizations they're invading and destroying. We live in a world that fundamentally does not make sense. The West is suicidal. The West is on a suicidal trajectory. And by the way, this is not the only case. There was a case in, I believe, May of an illegal alien in Oregon who ran over two girls who were in the street, two little girls in the middle of the street playing in the street. She ran them over and she says, "Oh, I just thought I ran over a leaf pile." Okay. How are you going to run over an 11-year-old kid and think, "Oh, I ran over a leaf pile"? She drives away, flees the scene. All charges dropped because, we don't want to be racist against illegals, that murder, little American girls in the street. It's,
and not for nothing.
Sick society.
Well, when it happens to blacks, it happens to Freddie Gray or Michael Brown or Trayvon Martin, they burn the city down. They're out there smashing cop cars. They're out there looting stores. And guess what? These things happen a lot less. I mean, it's arguable whether that's good or bad for the black community. When the Chicago police just say, "You know what, you want to kill each other? Fine, by all means." I mean, and that's the effect that has happened. But I mean, with regards to Kate Steinle in particular, white people were tweeting after Kate Steinle died, and white people were tweeting after Kate Steinle's killer got acquitted. And that's fundamentally why you'll never see a change. You will never see a change until there is a response. And I'm not saying that's violent. I'm not saying it has to be a chimp out. But if there were a demonstration, if we got out there and said, "This will not continue, this cannot continue, we will not stand for this," I think you would see change. But the difference is that every time one of these people gets killed, every time Donald Trump tweets something, you have George Soros get the buses together, and there's 200,000 of them in the street. That's an exaggeration, but there's thousands of them. They're doing the women's protester. They're doing that one they had recently, the Antifa Day of Rage, or the DACA protest. They're in what's her name's face, Nancy Pelosi's face, demanding all 11 million. When something happens to us, when our rights get trampled, when when we're paying taxes for our rights to get trampled, we tweet, and that's the people that are paying attention, James. I mean, the vast majority of people aren't even paying attention. They're sitting at home. They're lucky if they even see it. If they're watching the evening news, maybe they don't. Maybe they just go to their job, they come home, and that's why it will continue.
And the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? And the people who are making the most noise get the attention and get things done. And Paul Joseph Watson last night was out on Twitter saying, "Oh, here's he tweeted a picture of an empty street, and he says, oh, this is white people after Kate Steinle was killed." And I responded, I'm like, "Yeah, Paul, that's the problem. That's the problem." Like,
yeah,
he's celebrating as, "Oh, we're so tame." And
what an ass.
Like, no, dude, that is the reason why this can keep happening, because politicians do not fear retribution electorally for allowing these people to continue to flood into our country. And you're right. I mean, you look at what the blacks did in Ferguson, or in any of these other examples in Florida with Trayvon Martin, et cetera. They come out, they have a list of demands, and this is what Black Lives Matter does very well. I know that, Mike Cernovich got memed on for saying Black Lives Matter tactics, and I agree. We're not going to go out and start blocking highways and killing cops. But one of the Black Lives Matter tactics that does make sense is they go with a bunch of people and a list of demands. And their demands, I mean, we make fun of their demands. In conservative media, one of the genres of like YouTube political commentary is responding to crazy Black Lives Matter protesters. And I get that. And I have done that myself to some good effect. But it works. They come with a list of demands. They say, hey, university administrator, we're not leaving your office till you give us what we want. And the university administrators, oh, okay, fine. And they eventually give them all the weird, like, tranny pronouns and frizzy hair, mulatto studies departments they want, because they use political hard. This is hard power. They're, occupying a university building and saying, we're not going to leave till you give us what we want. We need, as Americans, as nationalists, as people who care about the future of our country, we need to start doing this. We need to start showing these people who are the decision makers in politics that we are no longer going to stand for this. And you mentioned that nobody, went out and demonstrated about this even, as much as you don't like him, as much as you guys have had beef, Identity Europa was the only group that came out and did any kind of demonstration about this. They came out, after Kate Steinle's killing and did a demonstration on the pier, and they came out last night and they left, photos and flowers and candles, at the spot where she was killed. So, as much as you guys have had your disagreements in the past, I think this is an example of positive activism. And it really shows you that where were the California Republicans on this? Nowhere. Where were the California college Republican activists on this? Nowhere. Who was doing it? It was the spooky, scary, evil media boogeyman Identity Europa who was doing it. But all the boomers on Twitter who were saying, oh, somebody needs to do something about this. Well, there's your people doing something about it, but you're still going to, sit back and call them Russian bots and Nazis because you're so lazy that you're not going to go do anything about it.
Well, and even with Black Lives Matter, don't forget what happened. Think of what happened after Trayvon Martin died. You had basketball players with Trayvon Martin on their sneakers and on their socks. You had politicians talking about it. You had celebrities talking about it. It was at the awards shows. It was everywhere. That was like, nobody will ever forget the name of Trayvon Martin. Kate Steinle, when did you hear about her? You heard about her on Fox News. You heard about her at the Republican National Convention. Was Taylor Swift talking about her? No. Were any of the white sports players, sports ball dunkers and shooters, runners, were they talking about her? No. And, you could point out IE, and IE has made some improvements, definitely not in the leadership. That was actually the opposite of an improvement. But in terms of the optics, they dropped the uniforms, and the activism has changed for the better. And I think, maybe there was something to do with that over here. I couldn't tell you, but that's the kind of thing that we need to expect, like you said, from the college Republicans, from the Republican Party itself. But, fundamentally, I think the big problem is that Republicans aren't invested in that enough. I don't think they see the benefit of that. And the problem is that if it's small, it doesn't work. That's kind of the catch-22 there, where like regular people, regular folks, regular Republicans probably see activism and they say that's probably not as effective. And when they don't think it's effective, it's not, because it's small. But if people were out in the streets demanding this stuff, that would be powerful. Why do you think George Soros is moving $18 billion into his account so that he could have these mass protests and rallies and be moving money around? Obviously, the guy is smart enough to know that it works. Obviously, the guy is smart enough to know that he's going to get a good return on investment. He doesn't pour money into busing people into these cities and into the hats and the costumes and the signs and the paid protesters if that doesn't have an effect. And it does. So we just have to get our act together a little bit on the right. And Lord knows there's enough outrage. I'm sure if, in Illinois, for example, where they're raising our taxes, or there's the beverage tax, or, all the crazy shit that goes down here, I'm sure there'd be people willing to go down to Springfield and protest. But, people are working. I guess that's another part of it. So I think this is just a wake-up call all around. This is a wake-up call that says America, white America in particular, nobody is coming to save you, basically. We have to do this. It's not going to be enough that we sit at home and complain about it. It's not enough that we get mad about it online. We can vote as much as we want. We're going to get fucked in voting very soon. It's got to be protesting. It's got to be activism in some form, or just getting involved in the Republican Party. But, that just goes to show that there's a real war happening, and if we're not there to take up a sword and a shield and be out there, everybody, we're going to lose. We're going to see more Kate Steinles.
Yeah, and the thing is, in California is such a clown state that you can't even have a gun to defend yourself. So let's say, the life of the average Californian, you're living in California, you're surrounded by illegal aliens. Approximately 20% of your state is illegal. 40% of your state is Hispanic of some nature. And, we know based on stats, these people commit more crime. Okay. We know based on FBI table 43, these people are more disposed towards violent crime. And you are living in a dangerous area. If you're in San Francisco or one of the big cities, you're in an especially dangerous area, and you can't even own a gun to defend yourself. So this is a situation that I know it's a very basic pro-gun talking point, but the only people who have guns in San Francisco are the bad guys. The only people with guns in California, with handguns in California, are the bad guys. Okay, you can't get a handgun permit or a concealed carry permit in California unless you're like in clear and present danger. Okay, so the standard for getting a concealed carry permit in California is so strict that almost nobody qualifies for it. Almost no law-abiding people qualify for it. But, that the illegals that steal guns out of BLM trucks and steal guns from cops and buy guns for cash on the street, that these people are going to have guns. These people are not going to say, "Oh man, I can't get a concealed carry permit, so I'm not going to tuck my gat in my waistband." Like, dude, you know full well what these people are doing. You know full well what's going on here. And yeah, it's ridiculous. And you're right. No one is going to come down from, a golden staircase. I mean, Trump is doing what he can by all accounts, but no one is going to come down and come across the ocean and save America. It's not coming. It's not coming. We can't count on Austria coming across the country, coming across the world and launching an expeditionary force and saving our country from the scourge within. Not going to happen. We need to do it ourselves. And unless this is the future you want, unless this is just okay to you. People say, oh, you shouldn't be, racist. Like you should love everybody. You should be so focused on the positives and everything. It's like, okay, great. We'll focus on the positives of, this headline: illegal immigrant accused of running over man in drunk hit and run. Okay, we'll focus on that positive. We'll focus on the positives of Kate Steinle getting murdered in cold blood in San Francisco. There's a lot of positives there. Let's just be happy and be nice and love everybody. Let's just love the fact that we don't live in a country that gives a damn about us anymore and cares more about the rights of illegal aliens. Let's be positive about that. No, we need to stand up and fight against this stuff. We need to have the will to fight. We need to have fundamentally the will to power. Otherwise, we're going to get run over. And the civilization that was built by our forefathers will be destroyed by these people. But fundamentally, one of the concepts of Western civilization, one of the inherent concepts in Western countries, in Western society, is the idea that there is crime and punishment. There's law and order. Okay. And if you commit a crime, you will face reciprocal punishment for that. Okay. This is not something that goes on in third world societies. It just isn't. In third world societies, crime often goes unpunished, or it's handled in an eye for an eye sort of way, where it's like, oh, you steal something, okay, we're going to cut off your hand. Like, that's not a good system either. We have a very well developed and in many ways perfected system of law and order in our country, in our civilization, that's worth defending. It's worth protecting. And if you change the people in our society, change the people who make up our civilization, that will go away. That will no longer exist. So it's time to stand up and fight against this stuff. It's time to take a stand. And I just get so sick when I see people who come out and say, "Oh man, just take it easy. Just don't get mad. What are you mad about? Just one girl, just one person." So, no, this is part of a bigger problem. This is emblematic of the direction our country's going.
Well, yeah, and that's your daughter. I mean, you got to think of it like that's your daughter, that's your sister, because it could have been. I mean, that's just it. If you live in one of these cities, and increasingly, even if you don't live in a city, increasingly, if you live in a place like Colorado or Georgia, that people would think it sounds implicitly white enough. I mean, or Texas, for that matter. I have a buddy of mine who did my website, he got in an accident because of an illegal. And that could be your daughter. That could be you. And even with the terrorism, I mean, the way politicians talk about it so flippantly about, oh, there wasn't that many casualties or whatever. Okay, well, it wasn't your kid. It wasn't your daughter that was at the concert. It wasn't your daughter who was, killed in the gunfire by the pier. And you have to think of it that way, because if that's the country you live in, and that sounds hyperbolic, that sounds like an appeal to emotion, but it's not. That's the principle of the matter. It's about the principle of it. Would you be okay? Like, I'm okay in a country where there is crime, because you have crime in every country, of course. If somebody gets robbed, I don't say like, oh my God, like, that could have been my kid. We have to have like a police state, a surveillance state. Like, no, I mean, you have to understand that people are going to get robbed. Things are going to happen. But when you have a guy who's been deported 6 times, or should have been deported a 6th time, committed 7 felonies, someone who shouldn't have even been here if the government was doing their job, and they kill somebody that was totally innocent because they're effing around with a gun. I mean, that's unacceptable. That is unacceptable. That should not be happening. That should not be happening. That's the difference. 100% preventable. And imagine if you're the father of that girl. Imagine, you raise your daughter, you deliver that daughter in the hospital, and she gets taken away from you by somebody who is deported 5 times, who is on their way to being deported. I mean, could you imagine? I mean, what kind of a feeling must that be? That was 100% preventable, that just was a fluke. If the government did you do your job, and the government doesn't do theirs, and it could cost you your daughter. I mean, for Christ's sake, that's why people are pissed off. And you have people on Twitter that are laughing about it, and they laugh at us. Sickening. Yeah. So people, things have to change, and we have to change them ourselves.
The thing about the illegal alien crime is, and people will come out and say, and like every time there's a big high profile illegal immigrant crime story, you'll get this big brain nibba take from somebody like Mike.com or Vox or one of these other sites that says, look at the crime rates of illegal aliens. Well, illegal aliens commit less crime per capita than citizens. So maybe we should deport the citizens and let the illegals have the country. I'm so fucking smart. Here's the thing, buddy. Here's the thing about that. Every single illegal alien should not be in the country. That's the thing. Every illegal alien crime is 100% preventable. Okay. Even in like the highest trust, safest societies like Japan or Switzerland or Austria pre-migrant invasion, you would still have crime, because there are people in every society, regardless of race, background, IQ, all that stuff, who are going to commit crime. Okay, that's well known. But different populations commit crimes at different levels. So when you have a group coming into your country that commits crime at a different level, at a higher proportion, that is a cause for concern. Also, when you're bringing in people illegally who should not be in the country at all, every crime committed by them is a crime that should have never taken place. You can do what you can to prevent domestic crime. You can do what you can to prevent murder, rape, robbery, etc. by people who live in your society. Absolutely, and you should. But to bring in more people who are committing more crime absolutely doesn't make sense. And every single illegal alien that has murdered somebody, they should have never been here. Their victims should still be alive. This is basic stuff. Everybody understands this. Everybody on our side of the aisle understands this. But it's just maddening to see the way that people, either don't care about this or treat it as if it's not an issue. It's just leave it alone. It's not an issue. It is an issue. It is absolutely an issue. And all of these people, every single illegal has to go back. I don't care if you're DACA approved. I don't care if you're a dreamer. I don't care if you're working in a 6-figure job. You have to go back. Simple as that.
It's true. They got to go. They got to go back, James, and we want no more. Nobody else can come in, and all these bastards go out. I think it's easy enough. Everyone can wrap their head around that.
Yeah, we have enough problems in our country now. Why, like you said in our last show, I think it was our last show or 2 shows ago, when you have your house is on fire, are you going to say, oh, this is a great time. This is a great time for me to invite the neighborhood homeless population in. I mean, if you're trying to do some sick, sadistic thing, different story, but is this the time to, should I, while my house is on fire, should I, set off a bomb in my basement? Is that a good thing to do? No, it's not. You're inviting more problems than you need, and it's just making the situation worse. So these people got to go. They're going back one way or the other. Either Trump's going to deport them, or ICE is going to, go rogue and start deporting. I mean, people are not going to stand for this anymore. Or, I mean, you're just going to start to see, like, you're going to start to see civil unrest, and like people are going to start taking this into their own hands. I mean, this is what you see in countries like Italy, in countries like Greece. You have like neighborhood watch type groups that go after illegal migrants, and like, you know, they don't use violence against migrants per se, but they make it very clear that their presence is no longer welcome. You know, they are persona non grata in the neighborhood. And, you know, you're going to have to start to see people doing that kind of thing. No violence, but people are going to have to start making it very clear that illegals, you are not welcome here and you have to go back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no violence, but I mean, that should be the government's job. It's just
it should. Yes,
that should be the default position. I don't know why you have left-wing people who think illegals like that. That should be the easiest thing in the whole world. Like that, people that are here illegally should stop being here illegally. Like they need to leave. I don't know why that's partisan. I mean, we know why that's partisan, I guess, but it shouldn't be. It should be the easiest thing in the world. I mean, that should be the one thing everybody agrees on. But like you said, clown country, that's the problem.
Yeah. Speaking of clown country, I think we got our triggering out there. Very cathartic to talk about that. Speaking of clown country, you know, hey, if you shoot an American girl, if you're here illegally, shoot an American girl in the back and lie about it, you walk free. You're fine. But if you do your job, if you're appointed by the president and you do your job, you, my friend, are the target of FBI investigation. This is, of course, the news about Mike Flynn. So here's what happened with Mike Flynn. And this is all, we knew this was going to come. We knew this would happen. Mike Flynn was on the transition team, who's going to be the national security advisor for Donald Trump. In fact, he did become the national security advisor for President Trump for a short time at the start of the administration. And during the transition, he did what every incoming diplomat does. I mean, it was all over the news when Obama's transition team was doing this with Russian diplomats, okay? Every incoming diplomat, every incoming national security advisor begins communication with foreign governments because you want to figure out what relations are going to be like when you take office. This is just a basic fact of doing your job. So Flynn did that. He talked to the Russian ambassador. He talked to Russian officials. And then when he was asked by President Pence about it, because keep in mind, this was at the height of the Russian collusion investigation. When he was asked by investigators, did you communicate with the Russians? And I'm sure the context of that question was, did you like collude with the Russians during the election? I haven't seen the exact question, but I'm sure that's what it was about, because the whole investigation is about Russian collusion, right? He says, no, I didn't do that. And then later it comes out, oh, he talked to the Russians about normalizing relations after the election was over. And now he's being charged by the FBI with lying to the FBI, even though in the first place, he did nothing wrong. And he was kind of, in my opinion, he was kind of railroaded into testifying one way because of the Russophobic investigation. It's absolutely crazy Russian collusion investigation. And now he's being, he's being railroaded for like offering a wrong statement about an investigation that he wasn't even a part. He shouldn't have even been a part of. This is all so backwards. This is so backwards.
Well, I mean, this is just like with George Papadopoulos a few weeks ago. I mean, if you actually, and it's kind of funny because these lefties, they get all excited about it. They think it's Blumph, BTFO. They think like Hillary Clinton's she's finally gonna be president. And then you actually look at the charges. You know, I remember this morning, in the morning of when Manafort and Rick Gates got unveiled, like they were the sealed indictments. And it ends up that they get charged for something that has nothing to do with what they're trying to prove. I mean, they forget that Robert Mueller is not there to, like, take down Trump. Robert Mueller's job title is not like Blumph BTFO. Robert Mueller's job is to investigate collusion or Russian interference in the 2016 election. And so far, all of the charges have been against Manafort and Rick Gates. It was financial crimes from 5 years ago. With Papadopoulos, it was lying to the FBI. Nothing about like the actual conduct was illegal or criminal. It was just because he like omitted something or he used the wrong dates when lying to when talking to the feds. He incriminated himself essentially because he didn't talk to them with a lawyer. And then the same happened with Michael Flynn. They got all excited about it. And if you looked at it, none of the charges are actually about his conduct in conducting U.S. diplomacy. It was nothing. There were no improprieties in his communications with Russia. He got charged because he lied, and he said a certain phone call did not happen, or he omitted that in the conversation. But that had nothing. I mean, that's got nothing to do with Trump, and that's got nothing to do with the election. And you see ABC, who jumped the gun on this yesterday, they said candidate Donald Trump directed Michael Flynn to make communications with the Russians, and that would have been, I mean, even that, it's dubious if there would even be anything actionable within that. I mean, it's dubious if there was even anything criminal if candidate Trump, a private citizen, directed Michael Flynn to do that. But it was President-elect Donald Trump who directed him to do that. They issued a correction, or they issued a clarification, which is actually a correction. They said, no, President-elect directed him to do that. In which case, like you said, Barack Obama was doing the same thing 8 years ago during his transition. So it's totally bogus. And I guess now it just serves as a joke, basically, that these ridiculous people, you saw on The View the other day, they got the breaking news update and they're like, oh my God, yay, Blumpf is finally out. And it's just kind of pathetic at this point that these people are living in this world where they cannot come to grips. They just refuse to accept. They're in the state of denial that somehow by some chance Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton's going to ride in and save the day, and like the other half of the country just doesn't exist or whatever. I don't know, but it's just pretty pathetic. Hopefully, and I'm still holding out hope that Mueller is going to deliver something like a huge surprise and take out Clinton or the Podestas. I don't know. I mean, there's no evidence to suggest that he would. I don't know. I mean, they started looking into the GPS fusion records, so maybe, but I'm still holding out hope that he'll be the one to throw these people in jail. Might not happen, but it would be cool. That'd be a nice twist.
Yeah, I mean, I think they kind of missed their opportunity to end this investigation. They should have done it. The Senate should have come out, and President Trump and Jeff Sessions should have come out and said about a month ago or a month and a half ago, when the news came out that they were investigating President Trump's like property transactions, that's when they should have come out and said, okay, this is over. Like you're clearly not doing what you're instructed to do. You're clearly not investigating Russian collusion. You're clearly just trying to take out the president. We're done here. Okay. You had your fun, Mueller. You had your fun, Mueller. But you're gone. Okay. You're fucking canned. But now, I mean, they waited too long, because now they found, their little charges to go after, their petty little charges to go after. And it allows the media to spin this into, Blumpf, dotard Cheeto Trump was buying votes with the election hacker machine men and the bots. And it's like, oh my God, like this whole narrative is so ridiculous. It's so patently ridiculous. And I think everybody who's like above, 105 IQ kind of like realizes this is all fake. Like when they talk to the journalists, like this is the one thing that Project Veritas is actually good for, is they'll talk to these journalists, and like the journalists are like, yeah, the Russia thing, whatever. It's really not that big a deal. Because everybody, to be a journalist, you do have to be like moderately intelligent. You have to be able to like write well. I mean, you don't have to be like smart by any means, but you do have to have some kind of basic baseline intelligence. Those people all realize, okay, this is like a garbage narrative. This is not real. But the kind of like dopey, people who are just on social media, and that ever impressive 90 to 100 IQ range, who are just out there like, waiting for their savior, Barack Obama, to come save him, waiting for the dotard Cheeto man to be BTFO finally by George Takei on Twitter, and for people who just want like President Seth, what's that guy, President Seth Abramson, the chief investigator of Trump with his like 300 tweet threads. I don't understand these people. I fundamentally do understand these people. And then it's like who are they? Who are these people? Really, who are these people who are out there who believe this stuff?
Well, I mean, it's people that are, these are like your public school teachers. This is like your university professors and a lot of public sector employees, I'd imagine. A lot of people that work in like the media class, consultant class. People that like don't do work. These are the kinds of people.
Yeah, like HR managers.
Yeah, ladies. Really a pretty nice amalgamation of like the lowest common denominator of just scraping up muck from, I don't know, like a New York City sewer or something. But I mean, the funnier thing too about the Flynn thing is that this, I think, is more incriminating to Barack Obama and to Jared Kushner than to Donald Trump. I mean, that's the funny thing, because if there were any illicit activity between the Trump transition team and Russia or any other foreign nation, it was Jared Kushner telling Michael Flynn. Michael Flynn said it was on the order of Jared Kushner and KT McFarland that he reached out to Russia and proposed that Russia either delay or destroy, not destroy, but to defeat the anti-Israel resolution of the UN Security Council in exchange for
Freudian slip there, pal.
a little bit in exchange for sanctions relief. I mean, if there were going to be anything that violated the Logan Act, like either anything that was false or true about the news reports that came out yesterday, it would be Jared Kushner directing, who's Jewish, by the way, directing Michael Flynn to aid and abet Israel at the expense of the Obama foreign policy. So, I mean, so there's that. And then,
isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Why would a white guy like Jared Kushner be coming out and working for Israel, huh?
He had all the white privilege in the world, James. He's I don't know. Weird that a white guy would do that. But but there's that, and then there's the fact that Michael Flynn was unmasked by Barack Obama. The only reason that they even have this intelligence about Michael Flynn, why did the FBI even question Michael Flynn about this? I mean, that should have been a pretty rudimentary communication between an incoming president and a foreign nation. But the only reason they had these records, the only reason they knew about this phone call is because they illegally wiretapped the president, and then they illegally unmasked these people to the press. So, more than anything, this doesn't incriminate Donald Trump. If anything, it incriminates Jared Kushner and Barack Obama. So it's a win, actually.
Yeah, I get that, but the only people who are going to know that are the people who are like really looking into this and who really care about it. I think for the general population, people are not going to pick up on that. People are not going to pick up on the Kushner, because the Kushner angle is being buried. Like the only place I've seen the Kushner angle reported is in like Haaretz and Times of Israel and the Forward. Like those are the only places you can find the Kushner angle. I mean, I haven't checked today. Maybe some more sources are picking up on it, but yeah, it's not being widely disseminated. That information isn't. But I do get the feeling too that most Americans kind of realize that this is not, that there's no collusion. Like they know that, okay, right. They were willing to give Mueller the benefit of the doubt and say, all right, investigate the collusion. If you find evidence of Donald Trump going out there and paying Russia to manipulate votes, or, telling Russia, hey, you send us some operatives to go like flyer neighborhoods in this neighborhood, like some kind of actual collusion with Russia. That would be an issue, right? That would be an issue. But what do we have so far? We have Michael Flynn doing what every predecessor he's ever had has done and make calls about foreign relations, which is totally normal, totally not illegal either. We have Russia apparently running a couple Facebook ads that were on both sides of the political spectrum. They were for Black Lives Matter and for conservative Christian groups. And by the way, no proof that's the Russian government, just a Russian ISP IP address. So could have been anybody using a Russia VPN. Like no proof that's done by the Russian government. And that's all we have. Oh, and then this Papadopoulos guy, like possibly being in the room with Vladimir Putin at some point. Okay. That's not even proven. So what do we have? After a year of this investigation, after this going on for almost a year now, after Trump's election, we have nothing. There is nothing to show for it. Nothing has been proven. Nothing's been dug up. It is not like, how much longer are people gonna accept Mueller, wasting millions of dollars of their tax money every month on this BS fake investigation with nothing to show for it? I think people are going to start getting very fed up with this very quickly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, you have to imagine it's a year of an investigation, and not just a year of any investigation, but like there's powerful interests that want this to be delivered, that want Mueller to deliver charges against Donald Trump and people in his administration. So it's a year of the investigation, but it's also a year of the media on top of this every day. Just in case anybody forgot about it for more than a moment, MSNBC, CNN, NBC, CBS, all of them are on top of it every night about every development.
Yeah, no, did you watch the whole video of the press conference of the Kate Steinle thing?
No.
The lawyer came out and said, the defense attorney came out and said, one of the co-counsel, he said, before President Trump or Jeff Sessions make any remarks about this, I would like to remind them that they are under investigation and there's more evidence to prove their wrongdoing than there was for my client, this Zarate guy who admitted to murdering a girl. He admitted to killing a girl. And this sleazeball defense attorney is coming out and saying, oh, by the way, Trump, oh, by the way, Donnie, you can't make any comments about this illegal because you're under investigation too. It's absolutely insane. This Russia investigation meme, like, dude, it needs to come to an end. It needs to come to an end because it is the albatross that is around Donald Trump's neck. And frankly, I think, there's kind of a sunk cost fallacy here too, where you got to wonder, okay, what is worse for Donald Trump? Does he allow this to go on for his entire presidency? This Mueller schmo, looking for reasons to nail him. Oh, you used the wrong kind of postage stamp. I guess we're going to get you in trouble for like federal mail fraud or something. Like he's going to go after the most minute thing. Is it better for Trump to just bite the bullet and fire the guy? Or should he allow him to keep going? I'm leaning towards just fire this guy. Just get him out of there.
Yeah, I don't know why he's letting it go on. I have no idea. Why would he let it go on? I imagine it would be either, number one, to prove the legitimacy of the government. I have a feeling that maybe he's letting it go on so that it's almost a demonstration for the Democrats, for anybody that doubted the legitimacy of his election, because there are serious doubts about it. I don't think there's evidence for it. I don't say serious in the sense that people are rational for doubting it, but there is a significant portion of the country and the establishment that are going on every day saying this was illegitimate. He's not the president. Hillary won the popular vote. Hillary Clinton's going around saying there was Russian hacking. So maybe that's a play for them to essentially demonstrate to themselves, for themselves, that it's totally legitimate. Like, look, you had your investigation. It went on for years. You had the media, and look, and they found nothing, and I'm the president. And maybe that'll help him in 2020, or maybe that'll just help him as he goes through his first term. The alternative, maybe they're actually delivering charges against other people. Who knows? Maybe the QAnon stuff from 4chan is true. I don't know. I think it's a LARP. I thought it was real for a while. I'm still kind of undecided on it. It very well may be that Mueller brings charges against Tony Podesta, as Tony Podesta was doing the same kind of work that Manafort was for the same countries in the same, like the exact same stuff. So that could be it. Lastly, maybe it's just a bad look. Maybe it would just be a bad look for him to fire Mueller. That would kind of give credence to the idea that there's hacking if he fired Comey and then he fires Mueller. Yeah. So I don't know. It's tough. There's a lot of things right now where I don't think we have the whole story. We don't know who Mueller is. To be honest, we don't know if Donald Trump, to the extent, what he's doing here. And so it's tough to say. I think it's one of those things. It's just like with the DACA thing. We're just going to have to wait and see, because I don't think we have the full picture right now. But it's confusing, but I can see several reasons why it makes sense to pursue it. So, but they have no leg to stand on. If there was collusion, they would have found it by now. Their argument is not like there was a tiny little infraction. Their argument was that Russia helped Donald Trump steal the election. If that's the case, they would have found that by now. There would have been a smoking gun. If you have collusion between a foreign country like Russia and this campaign, and you have at your disposal the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, the Obama, administration before he even left, Hillary Clinton, and you have all this money in the media, you would have found it by now. It would have been brought to justice by now after a year. So there's nothing. It just remains to be seen. Like you said, why is it going on? And hopefully we'll have a surprise on that,
Yeah, we can hope. We can definitely hope. So moving on to legislation here, tax reform. Yay, tax reform. Woohoo. I saw that last night. this past like midnight, or no, past like 1:30 Eastern time, and I saw that it passed, and I tweeted this out. I was like, "Oh, yay, woohoo! More bailouts, more corporate Gibbs, awesome, great!" Because the whole tax plan, it started out as pretty good. I mean, with a lot of the childhood tax credits and everything, and reductions in taxes for the middle class, which I think is very, very important right now. But as it turns out, the tax bill, it's more of the same from the Republicans. And this is from USA Today. Well, let's go through the provisions here, and we'll talk about it. There is some good news. I don't want to throw it out entirely. There is some good news, but from USA Today, Senate Republicans passed their tax bill early Saturday. So the next step will be a conference committee with the House to iron out differences with the bill that passed there on November 16th. Some of those differences are dollar amounts, with each chamber setting brackets and deductions differently. There are also substantive differences that could face pushback from House members, particularly conservatives, that have to be resolved before a bill could reach President Trump's desk. So here is the problem. Here's the main problem for me. This is from the Senate bill. The Senate bill sunsets individual tax cuts after 2025, which essentially means that all of the tax cuts that are in the bill now are temporary. They're only going to last you 7 years, and then they're gone. And it delays the reduction in corporate rates until 2019 and continues to charge a tax on high dollar estates. So this is not good politics for Donald Trump to sign this, because the reduction in corporate rates until 2019. I mean, first of all, the fact that the individual tax rates are sunset and the corporate tax rates are not sunset, that tells you something about who this Congress is working for, and it's not you. And the fact that there's a corporate tax rate that kicks in 2019, which is right before the 2020 election. I mean, we know how unpopular corporate tax cuts are in American politics. We know how unpopular that is. I mean, and we can talk about whether that's justified or not, but we know that the idea of giving corporate tax rates is not a good look for politicians. People do not like that. So 2019, Trump is still going to be president, and a corporate tax rate kicks in right before the election. And that's not the greatest politics for Donald Trump. So I'm not a fan of these provisions. I think if we're gonna do it, I'll take the reduction in corporate tax rates. That'll be fine. But let's do it the same way as the individual tax rates. Let's cut both of them and not sunset either one. How about that? Nick, I know you're a little bit more positive on this bill. What's your take?
Well, the reason why that you have the sunset provision on the income tax and on some of these other features is because if they didn't have it that way, they would have needed 60 votes. I mean, the reason that they're able to pass it with just a regular majority, with the 51 vote majority, which is exactly what they got, is because of existing Senate rules. And the reasons why if it passes these three accommodations, or it passes these three standards, essentially, there's this particular rule with tax legislation in the Senate that they can pass it with a simple majority instead of the standard 60 votes, the supermajority. And the three boxes to check, so to speak, is that the House and Senate are required to pass a joint budget that fixes the total amount of revenue that would be lost to tax cuts over the 10-year budget window ending in 2027. The final bill could not add more than the agreed upon $1.5 trillion to the deficit over the next 10 years. And the final bill could not add to the deficit beyond the 10-year budget window, and that's the Byrd rule. So the reason why they sunset the individual tax cuts is because if they didn't, according to these three rules, they would have had to get 60 votes. And if you had to get 60 votes, I mean, that's impossible. They couldn't get all Republicans. They couldn't get all 52 Republicans to vote on it. They barely got it through with 51 without Bob Corker. There was no way they were going to get 8 Democrats in addition to all the Republicans. So that's why I say, like, okay, I say the income tax, I mean, that's just what's doable. It's not a matter of like, can we get an eternal income tax cut, or can we get a sunset income tax cut? It's, can you get an income tax cut that's sunsetted, or no tax reform at all? I prefer the income tax cut regardless. And on top of that, a lot of the provisions are good. I'm not wild about the Senate one. The Senate one doesn't simplify the tax code, and some of the tax cuts, or the way that they change the tax brackets, actually makes it so that some of the lower income people are actually paying more. And that's kind of marginal because if you compare it to all the deductions and everything that happened, they doubled the standard deduction for both single and joint filers and everything else. I don't know what the effect would be completely on those people, but I'm generally optimistic about it. I know you've gone on this weird path where you used to be a libertarian and now, like, I don't know, because corporations are Jewish or something, now you're like,
no,
corporate tax cuts are.
No. That's not it at all. No, the issue is that I actually agree with what Tucker Carlson was saying recently, where he's saying, what is to stop these people from just reinvesting the money in, or not reinvesting money, what's to stop them from just putting it in the bank? Because that's what happens a lot of times with the idea of trickle-down economics. I mean, there is some truth to it, but if a company has reached efficiency, and they've reached a point where they don't need more employees, they don't need to expand, and it's just a risk they don't want to take. They're just going to pocket the extra money, dude. They're just going to take.
Dude. No, well,
yes,
it's not just about existing corporations, but it's also about if we have a 35% corporate tax rate, people are not going to come here and do business in America. I know that's like a conservative talking point, but it's also true. If you have a competitive corporate tax rate in like Scandinavia, for example, where they have very competitive corporate tax rates and the ease of doing business is very high over there, they're going to go in and open up a business over there compared to in the United States. Or people don't start a business at all because it's not worth it. So it's not just with existing corporations, it's also with non-existent corporations or foreign corporations. And then on top of that, you have the effect that corporations, if it becomes more or rather less expensive to just pay the taxes than to evade taxes, you'll have more taxable income. A lot of corporations go through a lot of trouble in terms of lawyers, offshore bank accounts, dubious accounting practices to not pay taxes. If those practices are more expensive than the taxes, you'll have more taxable income. And then on top of that, you say, they'll stash it in the bank. Well, if you put it in the bank, then you're increasing liquidity in the economy. If you're putting money in the bank, that means there's more investment capital that's available to be invested. And I know, again,
more loans in the bank.
But I mean, savings is a good thing when you have a country that's saving. Or if they're reinvesting in what? In factories and jobs. I mean, they're buying things. So
ideally they would be, but often they don't. And you can fix some of the problem, by the way. You can fix some of the problem with them saying, it's too expensive to operate in America. We're just going to go operate in China, or we're going to, build our factory in China. We're going to have our headquarters in Sweden or something. You can fight that by doing what Trump has proposed and increasing tariffs and making it so that if a company moves its headquarters, or if a company tries to operate overseas and then send their goods into the U.S., we tax them. And so we make it uncompetitive for them to do so. Now, when it comes to the corporate tax rate, I do agree. I mean, we have, I believe, the third highest corporate tax rate in the world. And there is a lot of truth to the idea. And I've made this argument too, that corporate tax rate in America is 40%. Okay. The effective tax rate, however, is only 15%. So there are enough deductions out there. Corporations can perform enough deductions that they don't ever pay the 40%, right? And so while there is some truth to the idea that lowering the tax rate will increase compliance, which will eliminate the, people doing the Panama Papers type stuff where they're running their finances through offshore accounts and everything, they're still only paying effectively 15%. So and the Senate bill reduces, let's see, this is from CNN. The Senate bill reduces the corporate tax rate to 20% from 35%. Okay, so, I mean, the effective rate's probably going to it's probably not going to drop a whole 15% to 5%, but it's probably going to drop about 10%, because you're going to, I don't know if they eliminated corporate deductions or not, but you're still going to see deductions. So, I get it. I get the argument, and I know that it can make economic sense in theory, but I just don't know if we've seen that shake out. And the trajectory we've been on for a while now in America, we've been losing jobs, right? We've been losing these corporations. They've been going overseas, and our corporate tax rate hasn't changed. We haven't increased it. I don't think we've increased it since like the 60s. I don't think we have anyways. I don't know. I haven't checked on that, but we can do other things to keep these companies here. We can do other things to keep these companies hiring American and employing Americans. And I'm wrong, actually. The corporate tax rate has been reduced. In 1979, the corporate tax rate is 46%. We've reduced it now to 35% in 1993. And during that span, we've lost a lot of our manufacturing. We've lost a lot of our jobs. We've lost a lot of our strong middle-class economic core overseas. So reducing the corporate tax rate by 11%, correlation, not causation and all that, but it doesn't seem to have helped the problem at all.
Why do you want a high corporate tax rate? I'm just wondering. It seems like you just don't like the word corporation because, you talk about like the effective tax rate is 15%. Yeah, maybe for these mega corporations that can afford that kind of overhead to hide their money, the people that are paying the actual rate, the people that are not able to afford to get out of it are the smaller corporations or smaller businesses or what have you. So like, why is it that you don't want to see a reduction in the corporate tax rate? I mean, is that like you want to punish corporations for being Zog? I mean, like what?
We need money from somewhere. I would like
but
to see
the tax revenue is not coming from there. The tax revenue is not coming from the corporate tax rate. That's not where the tax revenue mostly comes from income taxes.
Right. Well, mostly from income tax. Yeah. I mean, that's because we have probably what, like 10,000 people for every corporation.
And also just cut the budget. I mean, you say like, money's got to come from somewhere. Yeah. I mean, cut the budget. The budget is so bloated and disgusting. I mean, no amount of money is going to satisfy that ever.
I agree with that. But I mean, we have to operate with the way things are now. And look, I would be totally happy. I would be totally on board with something where we cut, the budget. We have a revenue neutral budget, or in fact, we start, chipping away at our national debt, by running I'm forgetting the term now, but a positive budget where we're saving more money and we're bringing in more money than we spend, and cutting taxes in accordance with that.
Actually, the thing is, if you cut taxes, you actually get more revenue because
it's curve and all that. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I'll give you the figures. I mean, Reagan cut taxes. Reagan cut income taxes, and every year there was more tax revenue after he cut taxes. So, I mean, and this is just a priori. This isn't even like you don't even have to look at it. I mean, you can look at the actual figures and it'll bear this out. But I mean, just a priori. If, like I said with the corporations, you create more taxable income, and if you create more economic growth, then there's more income to tax. There's more. I mean, again, if people are paying less in taxes, I mean, they can do more with that money, and then the economy grows, creates more.
Problem
jobs.
is that, and that makes sense in theory, and that sounds nice as an economic theory, but the problem is there's nothing to stop these corporations from doing one of two things: from either just putting the money in the bank, which
creates investment capital, which creates more jobs.
Which is then loaned out by the bankers, or they will take the money and just like increase. They won't increase. I mean, wages are stagnant, right? So again, this lowering of the corporate tax rate has not resulted in an increase in wages for American workers. Compared to inflation, it has definitely increased CEO and upper management salaries. Nothing wrong with making money, by the way. Nothing wrong with being wealthy and making a lot of money. But that's not what that's not the intended effect here. We're saying it's trying to create jobs. We don't want to just give CEOs more money to give to themselves. Or C. There's nothing to stop these companies from just using the money that we are now letting them keep in taxes and using it to open a plant in China, or using it to open a plant in some other third world country. And I think that this
come on,
I mean, there isn't. Do we tariff these imports? No.
We should. I mean, that goes back to what you said. I mean, we should do more things.
And like Trump has said, or like we've said for the longest time with border security, doesn't it make more sense to build the economic tariff wall first, and start dealing with the internal issues? This is very analogous to immigration.
This is meme tier. You had meme tier foreign policy on Wednesday, and now you have meme tier economics. You're saying, I mean, look, it just goes back to the standard keeps changing. First, it's, well, we could do other things that'll expand the economy, or we could do other things that'll encourage businesses to come here, like discouraging them from exporting here. Mm-hmm. But then also, well, the government needs money. Well, then also, actually, it doesn't create more money because, well, they could build the factory. So, like, is corporate taxation punitive? I mean, are we like, do we keep it at 35% 35% to keep them from opening factories in China? I mean, really, are they that desperate?
No, but
because that's the argument you're making. Well, it's actually not a good thing, because if we're not taxing at 35%, well, they could just take that money and put it in China. These Jewish corporations could stuff it in China. I mean, like, come on, James. You used to be a Ron Paul guy. Come back. A lot of the economics.
All of that's true, though. I mean, we can look at that time period from when we cut the tax rate from 46% to 35%, and it's coincided with the vacuum sucking out American manufacturing and moving.
Causation.
No, I get that. Look, I get that. But if you're trying to say that cutting the corporate tax rate benefits Americans, and that's really what this is all about, is what benefits Americans, I don't think there's any evidence to suggest that it does. I mean,
I just gave you a bunch of evidence.
No, you gave me economic theory. You gave me theory that says that it might. But what we've seen,
it's a priori. I mean, these are things that will necessarily happen. I mean, do you think like supply and demand is like theoretical?
No, I think supply and demand is very real, but none of what you said was supply and demand. What you said was the Lauer curve.
And again, there's evidence for that. Without Reagan,
again, that's correlative as well. That's not necessarily a causal relationship, because during the Reagan years, by the way, we were experiencing an economic boom for other reasons.
What were the other reasons?
I mean, there's a variety of reasons. It wasn't just tax cuts. We were undergoing. Well, that's actually when a lot of the STEM started taking off, and engineering was booming. But that wasn't due to tax cuts. That was due to innovation.
So they expanded the size of the economy in 25 years by a third. I mean, they added the entire economy of West Germany in 25 years because of STEM. Come on. I mean, look, at a certain point,
literally, yes. I mean, you can look at the economy now, and that was coinciding with innovations in healthcare, innovations in computing. Absolutely.
That's a lot of theory. I don't see any evidence for that. I hear a lot of that's theoretically true. Look, James, I'm not arguing anything. These are arguments you yourself probably made, but because, like, I don't know, rich people are now like subversive. They're all subversive. I hear corporations are for Israel.
No, listen, it's very simple.
You used to be a libertarian, and how did you get to this? How did you get to this wacky place where now cutting taxes for businesses is now a problem?
Because we can't do what our ancestors' generation did and keep kicking our national debt down the road.
So the 35%, you yourself said the effective rate was 15%. And if it creates more taxable income, I mean, like it has to be 35%. Then why are you for cutting taxes for the middle class? I mean, this so they can have more increases the deficit or the debt by $1.5 trillion.
Yeah, because the net benefit of middle class Americans having more children greatly outweighs the small amount they pay in taxes. By the way, the middle class,
you don't have to cut their taxes. You have a child tax credit that's increased. Why do you have to cut their taxes? We need the money, man. We can't keep kicking the can down the road.
Well, this is very transient and an elitist argument to make, because you're essentially saying that we should care more about the GDP and look, I get it. I get what
you're arguing about. You're saying we can't keep kicking the can down the road, and therefore we cannot cut the corporate tax rate. Well, I'm saying, okay, if you believe that, then why are you supporting a tax plan? I mean, you're saying we can't cut the corporate tax rate, which would help businesses create jobs, create more taxable income, because it would increase the deficit. Okay, well, cutting the tax rate for individuals would increase the deficit. We can have a child tax credit. We can increase the standard deduction without cutting tax rates.
Do you care about the future of demographics?
That's kind of a loaded question, don't you think? I mean, ask me a question about tax rates. I mean, because I'm trying to hold you to your own standard, where you're saying corporate tax cuts are bad because it increases the deficit. Okay, well, cutting middle class taxes increases the deficit. We can have demographics still happen. We can still have demographic incentives by having a child tax credit, by having non-child dependent
$7,000 a year for a child tax credit.
We could do even more. We could do even more than that. I mean, we could increase that by a lot, and we could do a lot of things without cutting tax rates that would contribute to the deficit.
No, the thing is,
because you don't have I'm sorry, James, but you're kind of full of it here. I don't see why you're not making an argument.
I get it. You're shilling for corporations because, Mulak and everything, and you got to do the corporate shill thing, and that's fine. But listen, listen, the trade-off, this is what I'm saying, because I concede that cutting middle-class taxes will have a detrimental effect on the deficit, right? I concede that. Totally concede that. But at the same time, you have to concede that cutting corporate taxes will have a detrimental effect on the deficit, right? It'll result in less revenue?
No, I think the opposite, actually.
We haven't seen that.
I think the opposite is true. We have, actually. It's just obvious. If you're cutting the rate, there's going to be more taxable income. And also, the corporations will be paying less of that money to the government, and they'll have more of it to either save or to spend.
That's the point. They're paying less of it. They're paying less of it. They're paying less tax. Look, I would rather have the average American, getting the economic benefit, getting the tax deduction, whether, look, the specifics of it don't matter, whether it's a deduction or whether it's a lowering of the tax rate.
Matter. Unless you're talking about the standard deduction, and even then, it matters about the rates, because the standard deduction only applies for the lower type people. For a lot of people, it's not going to change what bracket they're in. The standard deduction is right now it's $6,000. That's really not
right. Okay, so let's say that then. You can argue that a deduction, offering more deductions, is a tax decrease, and this is the way it's presented in the media and in the mainstream political discussion. Is that it's a tax decrease. So let's say we do a $20,000 a year childhood tax credit. Okay, everybody who has a child gets a $20,000 a year tax credit. I'm not too wild about that idea, because I think that will incentivize people who should not be having kids to have kids just for the $20,000 a year. It'll be kind of a cash generative machine. So I'm not as wild about the tax credit as I am about just reducing the standard deduction, because there are people out there who want to have kids. There are good middle class Americans that want to have children, that want to have a family, that simply cannot afford to do so. And they're not going to view, they fundamentally do not view a economic policy as the thing that decides whether or not they should have kids. They're looking at how much money do we have, and that's what decides should we have kids or not. Can we afford to have kids? Because they don't want to go on welfare, they don't want to go on assistance, etc. So if you decrease their taxes, you increase the amount they can save, you decrease the amount you're taking from their paycheck, you will then lead to conditions where these people can have more children. And I am okay with decreasing their taxes so they can have more kids, so we can have a more favorable demographic future in this country. I'm okay with doing that. And in conjunction, keeping corporate tax rates the same, just not reducing them even. We don't even need to raise them, because, there's an argument to be made that I think you would make that would probably be valid, that if we raise these tax rates, then you will spark the corporations into doing what they can to offshore that money and pay less. I think if you keep it the same, however, you're going to be okay. All right. So we don't need to raise it. We don't need to lower it. We just keep it the same, because the impact on our society.
The perfect number.
Well, I don't think it's
35% is perfect.
I don't think it's the perfect.
Well, why should we raise it lower then?
I don't think we should do either. I think we should keep it the same, because if you increase it,
perfect rate.
If you increase it, you will cause the corporate accountants to start looking at their books and saying, okay, what can we do to pay even less? Right. So you will lead a tax exodus, and this is what happens. There is data to support this, that when you increase the corporate tax rate, you do lead to more offshoring of finances. So look, I just think we need to
higher rates means more offshoring, so we should have lower rates. Or am I shilling? Am I shilling for saying that?
No,
am I being
what I'm
paid
saying
by Walmart?
Is that when you increase the rate, then you lead to exodus.
But you're
lowering the rates doesn't necessarily correspond with an increase in revenue.
Well, but doesn't that kind of, how could you say that like increasing the rates leads to an exodus, but lowering the corporate tax rates also leads to an, don't you see?
I see that.
See what you're fighting here?
I'll address that. Because when you lower the rates, When you lower the corporate tax rate, companies don't change their compliance, right? They develop compliance strategies. Everyone from the CFO on down in the financial department of these companies, people doing tax compliance, they develop compliance strategies to pay the lowest possible rate. Okay. So they'll move money around in a way that they pay the 35% on like a tenth of their income or on like half their income, right? So once they have that compliance strategy set, then when you reduce the rate, now they're paying 20% on half their income. So their compliance strategy stays the same. But the rate that you're taxing decreases. Okay. So when you increase the tax rate, you will then lead companies to develop compliance strategies that are even more what's the word? That are more evasive. Okay. So there is an argument to be made, right? There is an argument that you can make that lowering the corporate tax rate now will reduce in a temporary loss of revenue. But in the long term, in 30 years, when you have new corporations that have been started and they don't develop those same compliance strategies to offshore and get around the 35%, they're just okay with paying the 20%. You can maybe argue that in 30 years this would have a net positive effect. But I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that would actually happen. But that would make sense. That would make sense that in the long term this would be a benefit. But we don't know.
James, you're killing me here. And it's like in corporate corporate tax is 9% of it's minuscule in terms of revenue compared to payroll, compared to income tax. I mean, it's like nothing. And again, the broader argument, because this is not, I don't think this is about so much corporations as it is about just economics in general, which people have decided like they want to throw out economics. I mean, like what do you believe in terms of economics? I mean, do you believe in economic theory and this isn't like a dig. This isn't like I'm not trying to strawman you. I'm actually asking you. I mean, do you have an economic theory? I mean, how would you classify yourself, or is it just like rhetoric? I'm not trying to be a dick here, but it just seems like I don't know how you go from Ron Paul and you understand how economics works. And I mean, there are limits to capitalism and there's limits to cutting taxes and laissez-faire. And I get that. But how do you go from Ron Paul and cutting the corporate tax rate will create jobs to it won't? And I'm only asking that because, I mean, if you read something that I haven't, has there been a change in like the literature?
I don't know if there's been a change in the literature, but you can see the way things are going on the ground. You can see the way things are going in this country and realize that this economic system that we have now is having, what's the word? It's having a detrimental effect on the middle class. It is middle class people are being hardest hit by this current system. And in a perfect world, this is the problem that libertarian economists that Ron Paul devotees fall into, is they think too much about the perfect world. They think too much about creating the ideal society. And you know what? In the ideal society, I am inclined to agree with the idea that we would have, a very low tax, like 5% of income or 10% of income and a 10% corporate tax. In an ideal world, these things would work. But we don't live in an ideal world. We live in a world where we have massive amounts of debt. We live in a world where the debt in this country is going to be a problem, if not for us, for our children's generation. And we live in a world where we're going to have to pay that back in some manner, or we're going to be, slaves of the Chinese in order to do so. So we would like to run a country with a very low budget. We don't spend a lot of money. We'd like to run a country with very low taxes where we don't take in a lot of money. The state is very minimal, but that's not the situation we have today. And we can't start doing things that are revenue negative until we start cutting the budget. Oh. The only exception is in things that will fix our demographic situation.
In things that is 47% of tax revenue. I mean, I'm not hearing, like, I get the perfect world to a degree on the ground. But again, I mean, a lot of the phrases you're using are just rhetoric, is like, well, on the ground, it's hurting Americans. And in a perfect world, theory works. But I'm not hearing how you go from thinking that cutting the corporate tax rate is both is both just a good thing, because we're not taking people's money. The government isn't taking people's money. And also it doesn't have an economic benefit. I'm not hearing like, well, look at this, look at that. And, this happens to corporations.
Look at what's happened since 1979 when we cut the corporate tax rate. Did they invest that money back in American jobs? Did they invest that money back in American workers? No. They took it to China. They took it overseas. No, they didn't.
But did they? I mean, how could you say
wages have been stagnant since the 70s?
How could you say though that they cut the corporate tax rate in 1979 and then the economy explodes from 1980 to 2005? I mean, the largest period of wealth creation in the history of the world, and say they didn't reinvest it. What?
What's happened to wages?
Well, I mean, what figure are you looking at in terms of you say wages are stagnating. What figure are you looking at? And again, you have to, I'm not trying to be a dick here. I am playing a little bit of devil's advocate here. I mean, number one, you have this correlation causation fallacy. You're not showing me how the corporate tax cut adversely affected. You're just saying, well, this happened and then something else happened. So you're not showing me causation. And then number two, yeah, okay. I mean, you're saying like, oh, well, wage is stagnated, but I'm not, if I'm looking at a number, I mean, maybe I could give that to you, but okay. I think a lot of people got wealthier. From 1973
to 2013, hourly compensation in 2013 is 108.9% of what it was in 73.
108.9%. So it increased.
Compared to productivity, which has gone up, which is now 243.1%.
Well, how does productivity go up? I mean, does that go up in terms of there's more labor being put in, or does that go up because there's more capital, because there's more technology? I mean, this is a complicated thing.
Economic Policy Institute with analysis of Bureau of Labor Statistics data. You can look at the wage growth of the 1% here since 1980. The bottom 90% has only had a 15% wage growth. Compared that with the top 1%, which had a 138% wage growth. You can look at let's compare this against inflation. I mean, we can do that. All of the metrics are out there showing that the middle class is now worse off than it was in the 70s.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that at all. I just disagree with the fact that this is because of the corporate tax rate. I mean, you first have to establish that this is happening, and then you have to establish that there's causation. I'm not seeing cause. I mean, there are a lot of practices why this is happening. I mean, there's a lot of, in terms of the stock market, in terms of these financial instruments. I'm not arguing in favor of the mega corporations or multinational corporations or people like that. I'm arguing from the perspective of small corporations. I mean, incorporation is not, I mean, we think of corporation as Walmart Corporation, but to incorporate your company is not like the average business is making $1 million in revenue. They have more than 4 employees. They're paying $40,000 a year. I mean, the average corporation is not Walmart. The average corporation is not Apple. And again, it goes back to the mega corporations are already not paying corporate tax. The people that are paying corporate tax are the intermediate and smaller range corporations. And I just have a problem with people who hear a corporation and like that it's a write-off for them, or, economics then doesn't matter. Like, what is the government doing with the money that wouldn't be better off, to be honest, in the hands of these people anyway? I mean, what's the government doing with that money?
Yeah, no, I get that. Look,
I want to starve the government to death.
But this isn't happening in conjunction with massive budget cuts. That's the problem. This is accelerating the growth of the debt. But
you don't care about that, obviously. I mean, that's really not a priority for you, is it? Because you're for income tax cuts for the middle. I mean, why would you support? I mean, it's across the board.
Because I care about demographics. Because I care about demographics. Because I'm not an autiste libertarian that is you have to micromanage my GDP.
Whoa,
no.
That's a straw man. I'm just asking a question. I mean, you say you care about cutting the debt, but not more than cutting tax. But again, then
I care about demographics more than economics, don't you?
Okay.
Isn't that kind of a basic?
Hey, whoa! I mean, if you're getting a little bit defensive here. I mean, that's it. Kind of again, if you were just arguing that this was a good thing and you were on solid footing, I don't think you'd be getting defensive and calling me an autistic libertarian.
No, I didn't mean.
Don't you care about demographics?
I didn't mean to call you that. I didn't mean to say that you're that. But there are people out there who, in terms of economics, only care about GDP, and these are the people who will support things like mass migration.
Okay, that's not an argument. Not an argument. I mean, couldn't you also, by the same token, argue that let's just hypothetically, if we cut taxes, if we cut both income taxes and corporate taxes and taxes all across the board, the economy would grow. And if the economy grows, wages go up. And just hypothetically, and if this happens, that would be good for demographics. I mean, really, the only thing at this point that's contributing to decreasing our demographics is immigration. You get rid of immigration, and there's virtually no demographic decline. It's happening slow. It's happening, but albeit slowly.
Birth rates are the bigger issue.
No. If you stopped all immigration, the decline of our population would basically slow down. I mean, we had that article on our own website. Article on our own website where
right, but the only way to fix it is to stop immigration and to fix the birth rates, right?
Yeah, and I think, don't you think if people had more money, they would be, don't you think if they had more money, they'd be having more kids, James? Don't you think if there was more investment capital, if there was more money to spend? I mean, look, I'm not a corporate shill. I would love to be a corporate shill. If I was a corporate shill, I'd be on Fox News with Cabot Phillips. Okay. I'd have a job at the Leadership Institute. I'd be rolling around in money. I mean, I could be the shill. I'm not a shill, but you're trying to tell me that we shouldn't cut the corporate tax rate because it has the word corporate in it, and corporate is Jewish. I mean, that's basically the argument.
When have I said that? No, I literally didn't say that. You
didn't say that.
30 minutes ago, you strawman me that on the first time. I said no. Here's why I oppose corporate tax cuts. And then you keep.
And I think it's bullshit. I think you are trying to rationalize a position, and the reason I think that is because every standard I try to hold you to, it crumbles. The first thing was, the money doesn't go back in or whatever, and then it was, well, we have to pay off the deficit, and then it was, well, actually, the deficit is less important than
these things can be simultaneously true. All of those things are simultaneously true.
Again, if you're looking at corporate tax rates and their effect on the deficit, it's 9% of revenue. I mean, do you think it's going to kill us if 9% of revenue is, and that's debatable if that'll even go down. I mean, it might even go up. I don't know how you can take economics and just like, this is it's all theory. That's nice, but it's all theory. You can't just write off economic theory as like perfect world. I'm on the ground, James. There's no theory.
By the way, there are competing economic theories here.
Well, what's your economic theory?
Well, the Lauer curve has been widely criticized and has been widely. I don't want to say it has to be
true. It's a priori. It's necessarily true. How could it not be true? I mean, this is
proven as a causal relationship. I don't know if it's been proven as a causal relationship.
I mean, it's just pretty simple in the sense that if you no, well, I mean,
so
if I say it's simple, then that may then if it's simple, not true. Well, I'll explain it to you. I mean, the Lauer curve says that if you charge people 0% tax, right, you get zero tax revenue. If you charge people 100% tax, you get zero tax revenue. People are not going to be in your country and give all your income. At a point in the middle, you will have an optimal amount of tax revenue. So, I mean, if you just plot those 3 points, and we don't know where that optimal number is, but if you plot those 3 points, it is the necessary relationship of rates and revenue that you have a parabola, that you have, and not even a parabola because that's symmetrical, but that you have this curve. So the Lauer curve, I mean, if you agree that those 3 points plotted must exist, you believe the Lauer curve is real, and therefore cutting taxes sometimes results in tax revenue. And I think, again, when you have it at, like you yourself said, it's the 3rd highest in the world or the 4th highest in the world, and you admit that if you increase it, people will flee, but if you decrease it, well, I don't know. I just don't see a solid argument.
Yeah.
What?
Why wouldn't this apply to the middle class too? Middle class tax cuts.
It does apply to middle class tax cuts. But I'm saying if your argument is that keeping tax rates the same is important because we don't want to increase the deficit, then you would say that also applies to the middle class. I'm saying it increases tax revenue for both, and that's why I want to cut both. It's you who is saying, I care about deficit, but I only want to cut one, and I don't want to cut the other, and one of them will be good for demographics, but the other one, I mean, you're the one that's saying the two are different. I'm saying they're quite the same.
Well, I think the demographic implication of the middle class tax cuts is fairly indisputable. but the I don't know what the demographic implications of the corporate tax cuts are. You could even argue that the corporate tax cuts will result in more money to these companies, these large companies that will then use that to lobby politicians. So I don't know if this is exactly what we want to be doing.
This is just goofy, man. This is goofy.
I mean, hey, if you're a fan of what's that Facebook, the thing Zuckerberg is doing, the what's that thing called? Zuckerberg Immigrant Group.
Yeah. That's hey, and you're right. Hey, that's why we shouldn't cut taxes for middle income people, because middle income people will be spending them on soda, and soda will make them obese. And I don't like that externality. Therefore, the government should have that money, right? Well, hey, James, actually, if the corporations are paying more money to the government, you know what that means? That means? More money for Israel, right? More money for war, more money in Afghanistan, more money.
Yeah, we don't want that.
Yeah. So let's get money out of the government. Let's cut corporate tax rates.
Well, here's the thing, though. You think those foreign war budgets are negotiable? I think those are pretty much set in stone. Forward U.S. is the thing I'm thinking about. Yeah. No, I mean, look, I would love to do what you're saying. I would love to go and, cut the military budget and close a bunch of these bases, bring a bunch of troops home, end the foreign wars, end the foreign engagement. I would love to do that. This is one of the things that I got involved in politics to talk about. But we need to do that first. We need to stop the bleeding. You stop the bleeding before you do the surgery. You need to stop the bleeding, stop the waste of our money overseas, and domestically as well. Stop that before you start going after this stuff. So, I mean, and look, this is another one of those issues where there's two schools of thought on this. I think that people who are more conservative, classic conservative, are going to probably side with you on the corporate tax cut stuff. I think the people who are a little bit more jaded on that philosophy are probably going to side with me, but that's fine. That is fine. And that is the debate that constantly needs to be had here. So, it'd be interesting to get somebody like Chris Cantwell, his opinion on this, because he had a real transformation, because he used to be an ANCAP, right? Yeah. And so I think someone who, because I was never that far ANCAP as he was, and now I'm definitely not as far in terms of rhetoric and stuff as he is now. So I think that perspective would be interesting to talk about taxes. So when he gets out, we'll have to have that conversation with him. But sure. Time being, I think it's look, no hard feelings. I didn't mean to call you a corporate shill. What I meant to say is that you're shilling is that it sounds like, what someone who was in that position would say. So didn't mean.
Yeah, no hard feelings. It gets heated. I like when it gets, that's when it's fun, and so I enjoy it. I didn't mean to say that you only didn't want it because you thought corporations were Jewish.
Maybe a little bit of projection there. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, could be.
All right. Hey, let's take a quick break, and let's come back. We'll give you an update of the Roy Moore situation. We will talk about the stuff going on with Sadiq Khan and Donald Trump, Jordan Peterson, regular cast of characters, Al Franken, Luis Gutierrez, John Conyers, all those guys, Geraldo Rivera, everybody you want to hear about. Gossip time. We'll be doing that in the next hour, coming up here next. Nationalist Review. Welcome back, everybody. Hour 2 here at Nationalist Review. We're back after our thrilling debate there at the end of the first hour. It's good, good to have the conversation. Good to get those things out in the air, because there are a lot of disagreements, and we hear after we do any kind of debate about a topic. We don't plan the debates, by the way. Like that debate wasn't planned. We had like a lot more prep to get into that hour that we just didn't get into because that went so long. So we'll get into it here the second hour, of course. But yeah, we don't plan the debates. We just kind of do them as they arise, and we hear from both sides on every topic we talk about. We hear people in the audience on both sides of it. So it's good to know that there are people out there who are listening to the arguments, right? Because these are important arguments that need to be had. Speaking of arguments that need to be had, we had an argument We didn't ever really have an argument, but what's his name? Jordan Peterson tweeted some very upset things about people who are fans of our program, specifically people who had watched my program. So for those of you who are out of the loop, Jordan Peterson last week tweeted, quote, "You shouldn't be proud of your culture. You should be honored by your privilege of partaking in it and grateful for its existence, despite your inadequacy. That is not all the same thing." So, JPB, clean your room and be a mental cuckold, apparently. He also tweeted, "Those who have accomplished nothing as individuals feel compelled to be proud of their race." He was promptly BTFO by Kevin McDonald, who responded to him and said, "It's not about pride in one's race. It's about understanding that all people have a powerful genetic interest in their race and understanding what the demographic trends are in all Western countries and what those trends portend if white people don't begin to act and secure a territory and work in their own interest." Jordan Peterson also tweeted out, so he's presenting, right, Nick, he's presenting this kind of like radical individual, not even radical individualism, but like he's being very individualistic, right? He's a big individualist.
Yeah, hyper individualist.
So the interesting thing is, shortly after tweeting these things out, he tweeted about how he was so proud of his son for being a great singer. He was how he's so proud of his daughter for, writing some food science blog. So my question then to people like Peterson and radical individualists is, how are you going to say that we shouldn't be proud of people other than ourselves? We shouldn't be proud of our ancestors for building civilization, but it's cool. And in fact, we should be proud of our family for things they accomplished. You didn't accomplish that. Like Obama said, you didn't build that. You didn't build that. Same question goes to you, Jordan Peterson. How are you going to say you can be proud of things your family has accomplished, your children have accomplished, when you're also saying we can't be proud of things that our ancestors have accomplished, like building, the greatest civilizations that humanity's ever seen? Doesn't make sense.
Well, yeah, no, and these individualists, I really have a gripe with individualists because I used to be such a bad individualist. The problem is that these people, they can't see the forest for the trees on this. And it's really, I think, a problem of tunnel vision, where Jordan Peterson will see the individual, suffering, and he'll cry like a little baby over it. But these people don't understand that,
literally
this is...
cried.
Yeah, like a baby, not even like a man's cry where it's like a lone tear, goes down your face, like weeping, can't control himself. But these individualists,
individual, so beautiful.
It's right. Like, get it together, man. Collect yourself. But I mean, they don't get it that you have an entire society that's built on families. You have an entire society that's built on communities, that's built on group identity. They talk about quote unquote collectivism. That's the villain of Turning Point USA. Charlie Kirk is Superman and Lex Luthor is collectivism. They don't even know what this means. Collectivism, very simply, means in-group preference. And you look at quote unquote individualism in this country or in the United Kingdom, it is a very, I think, an English tradition, an English and Protestant tradition of individualism. And what is that built atop of? What is that built upon? It's built upon the in-group preference of race, of European, more specifically, Northern European. It's built on the group identity of religion, of the Anglican Church or of Christianity in general. It's built on the in-group preference of your community, of your family, ultimately. Is anybody going to tell me that if you had a choice of whether you were going to save your son or your father, or you were going to save some stranger that you've never met, you were going to say, it makes no difference to me, flip a coin? That's the question. Collectivism, in-group preference. And then Jordan Peterson, because he did respond to that when he praised his son, but he criticized Kevin McDonald, he responded to that and he said, it's my family, not my bloody race. And it's like, okay, but that's not the point. You're arguing about principle. You're arguing about what is the standard. You're against in-group preference. You're against collectivism. You don't believe that we have a right to have in-group preference with our race or our country or our religion, but yet you get to have it for your son and your daughter. Why is that okay? So that just goes to show, I mean, the guy is a smart guy, but he's one of these smart guys who can't see the forest for the trees. There's just no common sense there.
Yeah, the eternal personality test salesman. Maybe if you'd given him his $5, Nick, Give him his $5 and take his personality test. You'll understand that individualism is the great salvation for our nation, and that radical collectivism is evil. And the funny thing is, he won't criticize, certain interests in collectivism. He won't criticize Hispanic collectivism. He won't criticize Black collectivism, but he'll take pot shots at white collectivism. He doesn't realize, by the way, and this is something I've said before, that I didn't want to care about identity politics. I distinctly remember posting on Facebook, and I'm surprised none of the guys from 8chan have dug this up yet. I remember posting on Facebook back in 2015 that I hate identity politics, and I am I'm the real liberal. I'm a traditional liberal because I want everyone to have the most rights as possible and have liberties, and the deal. The Milo kind of Dave Rubin kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. And people like that who remain committed to that ideology, and increasingly people are leaving that ideology, but people who remain committed fail to recognize that radical individualism like that will lose every time when faced with opposition from well-organized, militarized in many cases, determined collectivist groups. You're not going to stand up against, Hispanic collectivism or Black collectivism or Muslim collectivism. You're not going to stand up against these things that fundamentally want to change your country by sitting around and saying, "Oh, I'm a big brain radical intellectual and I'm too smart for collectivism." And that's for dumb people. Dude, that's how you get, that's how you end up as one of those Maoist farmers or Maoist intellectuals that gets shot in the head and buried in a shallow grave in the Chinese Revolution. Those are the people who get swallowed up by the masses when things get really rough. And that's an extreme example, but in a very real political sense, you don't have political power as an individual. You don't. Your vote is one vote. Okay. You have political power as a member of a group, as a member of a party, as a member of some other identity group. That's how you have political power and how you build coalitions and how you win. And the answer from a lot of these skeptic types, from these classical liberal types, is to just try to opt out of the system and believe that group power don't real. It's dude, not going to work out for you, bro.
Well, yeah, that's exactly it. Is they want to pretend. They take this sociological abstraction of the individual is the only one who suffers, and that's a great line. That's a great line, and that's an interesting line of reason. It's a fun thought experiment, but does it exist in reality? If you're in war, is that individuals fighting each other? Is that, Joe Schmo from Kansas? He has an individual interest in fighting in Iraq. He's got an individual interest. Or even if you go back to a war that actually made sense, like the War of 1812. If you had somebody from, some good old boy from Georgia, did he have an individual interest as some farmer in going and fighting in Massachusetts or wherever? No. You have to have that collective. And you're right. It is about, to a certain point, it's about defense. Because right. Sure, the individual is the smallest minority in the world. Sure, if you have an individual mindset, if you have the mindset of the collective, you're pretty big, So it would be one thing if we were all playing by the same rules, but that's not the case. And even then, individualism posits that all individuals are equal. That's the other problem, that there are no differences. There are so many assumptions that individualism is founded upon that it just can't work anymore. If you believe in IQ, as Jordan Peterson does, and you just ignore the fact that you have IQ differences between different groups of people, well, then you're just a liar, because individualism only makes sense if all individuals rather, I don't know why I put the stress that way, all individuals are carbon copies. They're all just different units of the same thing. But if they're different in different ways according to their race or their religion or whatever, well, then you can't judge people as individuals. Then you have groups, whether you like it or not. So right. It is just a scholar's mindset. He can have that mindset as an academic, and that's where it is, I think.
Yeah, and the only people who believe that are the legion of people that follow him that think they are him. Mm-hmm. These people
right.
who you'll start talking to one, and then I was getting into it with a couple of them on Twitter, and they're well, they just use a lot of philosophical words and try to be really smart about it, and it's just obnoxious, Very obnoxious. They're like, oh, well, it's different. It's different when you say, family collectivism is okay and racial collectivism isn't because, you're related to the family. It's like, well, yeah. And that is true. You are biologically related to them, but you are more biologically similar to people of your same race than you are to people of other races. So the biological argument, if you want to go there, like, A, we still win. B, I'm not really making a biological argument. The argument that I'm making is that collectivism is okay. And it's an argument on principle, the principle of collectivism. Because JPB comes out and says collectivism is evil. It's collectivism for me, but not for thee. And I'm saying fine, because people were trying to straw man and say, oh, you're saying you can't be proud of your family? That's so silly. So no, I'm saying you can be. You can be proud of your family. But you can also have the recognition that your interest is part of a broader group interest. That's all I'm saying.
Right. That's so true about his fans, though, that do that. I had a buddy of mine from college who went through a Peterson phase, and they pretend, they think they are him. They think, they use the dominance hierarchy and they sort yourself. I mean, they talk like him. It's sick. It's just fucking sick and cringe. So I get what you mean by that, 100%.
You know what else is sick and cringe?
What?
The state of Europe, the absolute state of Europe. Now that's a segue. And so Sadiq Khan, low IQ Sadiq Khan, as Trump, I think, has called him, came out and said that Trump isn't welcome in the UK after retweeting far-right videos, the London mayor says. Now, what were those far-right videos? They were videos of Muslims in Europe beating up innocent people or like killing people. Like, oh, okay, those are the far-right videos. If reality is far-right, shouldn't that tell you something? Maybe those evil, racist right-wing bigots that you condemn have a point, Sadiq Khan. But anyways, he says there should be no official visit to the UK for Donald Trump. Sadiq Khan says the president has betrayed the special relationship between the UK and the US. Oh, yeah, that special relationship where we're just supposed to pretend like you guys aren't committing civilizational suicide. I forgot about that special relationship. And, of course, there's more outrage about Trump retweeting these videos of migrant crime, of, African immigrant crime in Europe than there is about this attempted bombing that happened a couple days in Germany, where they recovered a bomb and nails as shrapnel next to a children's carousel at a Christmas market. But Sadiq Khan is angry about President Trump sharing Muslim crime videos. Sadiq Khan suspiciously nothing to say about Muslims trying to blow up children in Germany. Really makes you think. And again, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier about this idea that the rights of the invader, the rights of the criminal, the guy, we live in an allegory would be, you have a house and, these people start coming into your house and taking your stuff and eating your food and sleeping in your bed. And you're like, hey, what the hell? Get out of here. Stop causing me problems. And the police are like, oh no, it's fine. It's fine. Just accept it. You're like, no, I don't want to accept it. But we are forced to. So, absolute upside down clown world here.
Yeah. Well, imagine being Sadiq Khan. Imagine being like one of these Muslims where you come over into this country and it's bad enough. Like you come over here illegally. You're one of these migrants and you're somewhere where you shouldn't be. You're a guest. And you're committing crimes, smashing statues of the Virgin Mary. Well, I don't know if that was in Europe, but, the one where they're punching the kid on the crutches. They throw a kid off a building in Egypt.
Yep.
And you're a Muslim in the United Kingdom by whatever. I don't know. I guess it's like because the country's a joke, you get elected to the mayor of their capital city. And you get to call that like hate. You get to disinvite the American president. Like just imagine that. I mean, that sounds like a joke. That sounds like a really funny joke, like a goofy story where it's like a Muslim Middle Easterner gets elected to be the mayor of London and he is disinviting the American president from coming and doing a state visit. Like that sounds like a movie. That sounds like the premise of a comedy. That would happen. It's just downright absurd. And it's funny too, you talk about a far right video. Like what about that makes it far right? Right? Exactly. Like it's a video of something happening and a description of it that makes it far right.
Truth is not far right. The truth is far right.
Yeah, Muslims are causing problems. That's far right. Like, no, that's happening. So it's just goofy. We live in a goofy world, and we got to have something happen. We need a solution to all of this. We need to end it all for these people.
Yeah, we could turn the tables and recolonize the UK. Give them a little bit of the treatment that they gave us back in the day. Wouldn't that be nice?
We got to save them. We got to, once we figure out our own stuff, that'll be awesome. We'll go in and save Europe. Imagine like 100 years from now, America's saved and like we're old and we're generals and our kids are going off to fight to reconquer Europe. We'll be like, I don't know what I'll name my kids. We'll be like, you got one mission, restore our homeland. It's for our people.
Yeah. Like the dying wish or you, yeah. Very poetic, but hopefully it doesn't come to that.
I think it'll have to. I mean, you look at like by 2050, I read that like something like 30% of Sweden will be Muslim and like 20% of Germany, 15% of France. I mean, it's crazy the way they're taking over. So might have to happen.
And similar things are happening in America, although not to the same extent. But and you talk to people about this. You talk to older Republicans about this. And they'll tell you like, oh, I don't like going to the mall around all these people. I don't like going to the mall and not hearing my language spoken. I don't like going to the mall and hearing, just the fact that, I'm the only one who looks like me in my country anymore. And the culture is changing and people are rude and they're pushy and everything. And, they'll say that. And then you say, okay, well, how about we ban immigration? And how about we start, bringing in more people who have our culture and who have our interests? And like, what? Are you racist? Are you racist? America's post-racial. We're not a racist country. And they freak out and you're like, oh, stop being a bigot. And you're like, okay, like here's the solution to the problem that you are aware of. And I'm giving you the solution right here. And you're calling me a racist for doing it. So, okay. You're not serious about getting things fixed. Speaking about somebody who's serious. Hey, Luis Gutierrez, Nick, you might be in luck. You might have a president from your own district, your congressional district. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah. Great.
Downside to that, of course, is that president would be Luis Gutierrez, the Democrat from Illinois, who announced Tuesday he's not going to be seeking re-election. We already talked about this. And I called this when this happened. I called this. He was going to run for president. He now has announced that, quote, I will be reaching out to people across the country. I'm going to take the steps to guarantee the Federal Election Commission regulations and rules about campaign financing are being followed, he told Politico on Wednesday. It's happening, dude. Luis Gutierrez is doing at least the Exploratory Committee. And he is repeatedly saying he's not retiring. So he's looking like he's going to be testing the waters here. And tell you what, nothing could be better for Republicans than Luis Gutierrez being a Democratic presidential frontrunner, because they're going to see, regular middle-class white Americans are going to see this guy coming out saying, oh, we need amnesty for all 11 million illegals. Oh, we need to make everything in Spanish. He only tweets in Spanish, by the way. Like he tweets occasionally in English, but it's mostly in Spanish. Nothing would be more red pilling for Americans than to realize, holy crap, we thought Obama was scary. This guy's a radical.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that would be the best guy that could run, because he's the face of what we're fighting. I mean, that was kind of the downside about Hillary Clinton, I think, because she, in a lot of ways, she had clout in the sense that she was with Barack Obama, she was with Bill Clinton, and that was the old Democratic Party. So for a lot of people that were voting in places like New Hampshire, or people that were voting in places like Minnesota, they're voting for Hillary Clinton, and in a way, they're voting for Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. With Luis Gutierrez running, he is the face. Not only is he the new Democratic Party, as Hillary Clinton was, but he is the face of it. He is like the manifestation of what's happening under the Democrats and what they want to see happen. So you're right. I mean, there'd be no better candidate for Republicans to come up against, because they will be voting on literally Hispanics. They'll be voting on, do we want to have an Hispanic country where we have Hispanic presidents, and that's what we are now. That's what we are in character. It's one thing to have Hispanics in the country. It's another thing to become an Hispanic country, you know? So I think if we get that on the ballot, it'll almost be like a referendum. So I'd love to see that. I mean, could you imagine how Luis Gutierrez would do in Minnesota? Could you imagine how, I mean, you have no shot in Iowa, North Carolina. I mean, they would be throwing away all the swing states that aren't like underway as being taken over by Hispanics, like Colorado or Arizona, New Mexico, Florida. They'd be giving it away basically. So I don't know. I hope he runs. He's a radical. That would be the accelerationist candidate. But the guy's a total mo. I mean, the guy's just dumb. He looks dumb. He's short, I think. And so I hope he gets the nomination. Let's hope, right?
Yeah. Well, and, you know, we look at it as ridiculous, but who else is there? The Democrats have nobody. I mean, Kamala Harris, she's not going to do well in places like in these recently Hispanic states. Again, she's black. And this identity politics coalition that they were building, this coalition of the ascendant, like we always talk about, it's going to crack. And these different groups are now competing for power among the remnants of the coalition of the ascendant. Because the coalition isn't ascending anymore. The coalition is dissipating, and they're done ascending. They've ascended. They're fighting in a power struggle now. So can they unite? This is the question. Can they unite the Hispanic voters around a black candidate? Can they unite the black voters around a Hispanic candidate? Maybe, but the history of race relations in America seems to indicate that they probably couldn't. That would be a very hard sell for people in those different groups. So we'll wait and see. I think 2020 is definitely going to be the litmus test because they're not going to nominate another white person. They're not going to nominate Biden. They're not going to nominate someone who is like ostensibly white, like Bernie Sanders. This is not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the thing is, you know, it's kind of funny when you bring up Kamala Harris is you really do start to see the fracturing that you're talking about where like blacks are losing power in the country, relatively speaking. You think of how important the black vote used to be. Even in our lifetime, you know, how black voters were courted and blacks were upheld. I mean, that was a sizable voting block. And now the Democrats are realizing they don't have to. I mean, it's important, sure. But they're going to get them anyway. And if they don't, they have to appeal to the Hispanics. As the proportion of Hispanics increases in this country, almost necessarily the political power of blacks will go down, and it'll be, you know, you'll get a Luis Gutierrez instead of Kamala Harris because Democrats know they can count on 90% black women and 85% black men. So you know what? Kamala Harris, she's not gonna get it. Cory Booker, not gonna get it. You want to know why? They don't need you anymore. Yep. So they'll go for used. Yeah, they'll go for a Gonzalez or a Hernandez or a Rivera. And I mean, it's funny because everything that we predicted that would happen is starting to happen in terms of we are fracturing along ethnic and racial lines. 88% of Donald Trump voters were white. And as you move forward, we're going to see these different coalitions. You're going to see it's going to be Luis Gutierrez versus Donald Trump versus Blackie Black. And, you know, pretty soon it'll be an Asian person that'll be thrown in the mix. That's going to be the next wave is going to be from China and Indochina. So
it's going to be from India, I think, it's more likely. Like Chinese people just don't seem to be as inclined towards politics, but Indians definitely do. And I mean, we've talked about this on the program on in my home city, hometown. This is happening, and we now have a Pramila Jayapal, who is the congressman from Washington 2, I think, the district out there, very left wing district in downtown Seattle. You know, they're trying to make that the new demographic group that they court is people from India. So, you know, but again, they keep adding stuff to this mixture, adding to this pot of different people and different races and different ethnic backgrounds and everything. And it's good to win elections in the short term, but in the long term, it leads to division in your coalition and it makes you unable to form a coalition. And as you do it, your policies necessarily have to get more and more anti-white, which then leads voters towards the Republican Party. So it's kind of it's a calculation and a calculus they've already made, but as they continue to make it, it's going to just keep going bad for them.
Right. Yep. No good. We're getting blasted by every third world country. It sucks. It sucks. I want my own country. You know, I don't want to have to deal with this. Nobody else has to deal with this. Isn't that such a shame? Like we have Luis Gutierrez and Kamala Harris. You know what? I just want Donald Trump. You know, in Mexico, they don't have to worry about like somebody who is totally different than them and probably doesn't have their interests becoming president. Barack Obama was the president for black people. He was not the president for white people, or for all Americans. And Luis Gutierrez won't be the president for all Americans. He'll be the president for the Hispanics. No other country has to, well, maybe countries in Africa because they have the same problem. They get a rival tribe that gets elected. It's funny too. That's what's going on there. But in China, they don't have to worry about it, and anywhere else. So it's bogus.
In China, they don't even have elections.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe something
makes you think.
It really does make you think, doesn't it? Huh.
Yeah.
Almost like there's a certain God that failed. Huh.
Yeah.
That does make you think. So anyways, moving on here to another Democratic rep. John Conyers, Democrat from Michigan, will decide in the next few days whether to resign in the face of sexual harassment allegations involving 3 women, his attorney said Friday. We will discuss in the next day or so what Mr. Conyers plans to do, the attorney, Arnold Reed, said at a news conference in Detroit. As you know, his health is not the best, is not what it should be. He has undergone a second round of exam. Oh, so this is the pivot they're going to do, okay? They're going to try to say, he's not resigning because he was molesting girls. He's resigning because he's sick. He's not healthy. It will be Representative John Conyers who will be the one to decide what he's going to do. Now, that's all well and good, but then this last part of the article from Politico here really makes you think. Before the press conference, representatives for Conyers were trying to negotiate a resignation date that will allow the congressman to receive one more paycheck, according to multiple Democratic aides. So it's looking like he's probably going to resign, but he's just concerned about getting his parting checks on his way out the door. Clearly a man of character here, John Conyers.
Yeah, is that really a surprise to anybody? Is that really, it's rich, but that's no surprise. On top of the fact that the guy's, perv, that then he's gonna wait for the last paycheck. That's just too rich, too perfect.
Taxpayers already paid for his settlement with the girls that he was allegedly harassing, and now gotta get that one last collection on the way out the door, don't you, bud?
Yeah, right. What a joke. That's gotta love those Democrats. There's
a lot of problems here with the Democrats. Yeah. Speaking of the Democrats, Al Franken getting dogpiled on. More and more women are accusing Mr. Franken of sexual assault. This is from the Washington Post. This story's been buried. You haven't heard about the story in the past week, but it's continuing to escalate. Washington Post. An Army veteran is the latest woman to publicly accuse Senator Al Franken of touching her inappropriately, saying the Minnesota Democrat groped her during a USO tour nearly 14 years ago. Now, it's one thing to be molesting women in the U.S. It's another thing to go on tours to go entertain the military, ostensibly to entertain the military, and to go molest service women. That's something else. And that's what Franken apparently used these cruises, the boob cruise here for Franken, just go and grope a bunch of women overseas in Afghanistan. Stephanie Kemplin told CNN that she was serving during the Iraq War when she met Franken and posed for a photo with the then comedian in 2003, years before he was elected to the Senate. Put his arm around me. He groped my right breast. Kemplin told CNN, he kept his hand all the way over on my breast. I've never had a man put their arm around me and then cup me, so he was holding my breast on the side. Said it 3 times, just in case you didn't get it the first time. Citing the new revelations about the senator, Representative Joe Crowley, Democrat from New York, chairman of the House Democratic Caucus, told Politico, it's time for Senator Franken to go. So, mounting pressure.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing. Here's what's kind of funny about it is Nancy Pelosi tells John Conyers to step down. Where's the call for Al Franken? She wants an investigation for Al Franken. And I think now would be the perfect time for us to push a little bit a racial kind of a thing. John Conyers gets pressure to step down. Why? Because he's black? How about Al Franken? Because he's
Democrat. Yeah, because he's
Al
white.
Frankenstein, because he's white. Yeah, because he's
Al
white
Franken
privilege.
Benefiting from white privilege.
Yeah, right. So I think that's a win. Well, Al Frankenstein is benefiting from
as Trump would say. We're not injecting that. Trump said that. That was Trump's.
Yeah, that's a mainstream thing to say. We are not injecting that.
Yeah.
That's so. Yeah, no, I don't know. I saw on the betting markets it's likely that he's going to step down. But I mean, the guy's so entrenched with some of these bastards, they never go. Like Joe Biden, look at all the stuff that went on with him, and he's
not going to go. He's not going to go. Why would he go? I mean, there's no reason for him to leave. Why would he leave?
Right. Yeah. No.
No pressure. Al Frankenstein, as Trump would say. Look, I mean, people say, "Oh, you say mean things." Oh no, we're just quoting. We're just quoting what others have said. We're just making it's referential humor is what we do here. We do referential humor, like when we talk about the Washington Post article that said that Benjamin Netanyahu is trying to lobby the U.S. and going to war with Iran. It's referential. We're not trying to say anything about that. Just referential. Yeah. So also, the hits keep coming for these people. Geraldo Rivera, hands on apparently. CNN Money reports Fox News correspondent Geraldo Rivera apologized on Friday to Bette Midler. Is it Betty Midler? I don't know. After she accused him earlier this week of drugging and groping her in the 1970s. Although I recall the time Bette Midler has alluded to much differently than she. That does not change the fact that she has a right to speak out and demand an apology from me for, in the very least, publicly embarrassing her all those years ago. Bet, I apologize. Dude, if you're innocent, you don't apologize, because now he's opened himself up to all kinds of trouble. Stupid. Yeah. Here's the thing. There are some of these sexual assault allegations that I believe and some that I don't believe. And this one, look, I don't know. He apparently he drugged and groped her. I don't know. What does that mean? Does that mean he roofied her and did stuff to her? Yeah, that's messed up. Does that mean they had a couple drinks and they were getting handsy? Two very different things. But if he's gonna say, that he did nothing wrong, then don't apologize.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean that you're implying guilt when you do that. You're conceding. If you're not guilty, you don't apologize for something you don't do, Geraldo. So.
This is the same thing that happened with that Glenn Thrush guy, Glenn Thrush from the New York Times, and I get it. We're supposed to celebrate one of these lefties going down, but I was more just mortified how much of a beta male this guy was, because he apparently was hitting on a girl and was walking with her outside of a bar, and she wasn't into him, and it's okay, fine. He was hitting on a girl, she wasn't into him, fine. And then her friend found out about it, and her friend was what can you give me to make sure this doesn't happen again? What can we do to ensure you don't do this again? And he's oh, I'm so sorry. I apologize. I'm so sorry. It's dude, don't apologize. Again, there might be more about this case that I haven't heard, but from what I heard, he was just hitting on a girl. She wasn't into him, and she blew him off. And he's apologizing for that. It's dude, you did nothing wrong. I mean, you are a New York lefty, probably low testosterone. So that's why she wasn't into you, Glenn. But it's you didn't do anything criminal or creepy or wrong from what I saw. So why apologize?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm sure with that kind of thing, it's just a matter of the climate right now in terms of what's been going on with Hollywood. And I'm sure people are probably a little, what do you call it? They're a little antsy, maybe anxious about what's going on. Because you can imagine if you have some kind of, in the case of Geraldo Rivera, if there's an accusation, I'm sure people are probably overly cautious, one of those better safe than sorry type things. But either way, it's if you didn't do anything, never apologize. That's just, even if you do something, in many cases, it's okay, or it's better not to apologize. Donald Trump, throughout the election, didn't apologize for anything until Pussygate. And that was an outstanding, exceptional circumstance. Out of all the accusations against him from women and the things he said and the things he did in the past, never an apology. I mean, didn't even approach that. So I generally, it's my policy that you never apologize unless absolutely necessary. I mean, you could say you regret something or you made a mistake, but very rarely do you make an apology. But then to apologize for nothing, I mean, that's just bad praxis.
Glenn Thrush did the same thing. He's I recall this happening differently than she's saying it did. This didn't happen the way the woman saying it, because there were allegations of he put his hand on a girl's thigh and kissed her. He's saying, that my recollection is different. It didn't happen the way she said it did. But then he says, any behavior that makes women feel uncomfortable or disrespected is unacceptable. It's like, dude, you are, and then he apologized. It's like, you are granting credence to all of their allegations that you're like trying to say didn't happen. So shooting yourself in the foot. Very, very dopey. Hey, speaking of somebody who did do something wrong though, Matt Lauer with his rape room. You know, we heard all about Saddam Hussein and the rape rooms in Iraq, but turns out Matt Lauer had a literal rape room over at NBC. Variety reports, as the co-host of NBC's Today, Matt Lauer once gave a colleague a sex toy as a present. It included an explicit note about how he wanted to use it on her, which left her mortified. On another day, he summoned a different female employee to his office, dropped his pants, and exposed himself. After the employee declined to do anything, he reprimanded her for not engaging in the desired act. He apparently had a room. This is from Variety. Quote, his office was in a secluded space and he had a button under his desk that allowed him to lock his door from the inside without getting up. This afforded him the assurance of privacy. It allowed him to welcome female employees and initiate inappropriate contact while knowing nobody could walk in on him. Excuse me. So, very, very weird stuff going on with this guy, Matt Lauer.
Yeah, I didn't expect this one, to be honest. I'm not a big fan of NBC or NBC Today or Matt Lauer or anything like that, but I don't know. I didn't peg him as that kind of a guy. Maybe I didn't watch him closely enough, but what a creep, right? I mean, that's and it just goes to show these are the guys that are the most, this type of guy are the most outraged and upset about sexual assault. You know, he was interviewing Bill O'Reilly just a couple of months ago and really giving it to him about the allegations against O'Reilly. And I'm sure he was there with the Trump tapes last year. And, these are the first kinds of guys to be up in arms about sexism or women getting abused or whatever. And then often they're the sickest, most perverted people themselves. So, I mean, it is what it is. This is what goes on in Hollywood. This is what goes on in these networks. I can't help but wonder if there's a reason why you have these people in these positions. Like, maybe it's because there's a certain type of person. Maybe it's because they're eccentric, or maybe it's because these people are easy to blackmail. You know, if you notice all these people in these high positions of influence have these secrets that everybody seems to know about in the high or in the top brass. Could it be some kind of a blackmail thing? Could it be like the nature of who they are and, whatever that means? I don't know, but it's very weird that there's so much going on.
It is very strange, isn't it? Very, very strange. Yeah. So, hey, he's not the only guy getting in trouble for doing stuff. There is trouble in Nevada, and not relating to things getting comped. This is from Fox News. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi has called on a Nevada Democratic congressman to resign following allegations of sexual harassment. BuzzFeed News reported Friday that the finance director, a female, for U.S. Representative Ruben Kihuen, that's a nice rhyming name there for this guy, his 2016 election campaign, left her job after he allegedly made repeated sexual advances towards her. Across the nation, in every industry, brave women are coming forward to share stories of harassment that must be heard. Unless you're the woman accusing Franken. In Congress, no one should face sexual harassment in order to work in an office or on a campaign. A young woman's documented account is convincing, and I commend her for the courage it took to come forward. In light of these upsetting allegations, Congressman Kihuen should resign. Kihuen was believed to be a rising star in the party and flipped a district in Nevada last cycle from Republican to Democrat. He is also, get this, a dreamer. So he is I don't know how is he serving? He's an illegal alien.
I don't know. I thought illegal immigrants weren't allowed to vote, let alone, well, I guess maybe it's something with dreamer status, or maybe it's something with Nevada law, but that doesn't sound right. I don't know how he could have been how he could have expected to rise any farther if he's not even a fucking citizen, right? Well, I guess, don't they get amnesty eventually? Don't they get a pathway to citizenship if they're dreamers? I'm not totally sure.
I have no idea.
I'm not sure how that works, but either way, it's bullshit.
He was born in Guadalajara, Mexico. His family moved to the U.S. in 1988. So he came here somehow he came here illegally and got citizenship. I have no idea, but dude, imagine that. We have people from foreign countries serving in our legislature. Like, you think Japan does this? You think, no, they don't. They don't. because they know that people who are born in foreign countries will have allegiances to said foreign country.
Right. Yeah. So it's just, I don't know how this is acceptable to anybody. It just baffles me. Any lay person should know there's something wrong with this. But
they're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime. They're rapists. They're rapists.
That's right.
They're
rapists. Yeah, there's your rapist for you.
Yeah, we're checking all the boxes. I mean, God, we got drugs with every day across the border. We got crime with the guy who shot Kate Steinle. What did he say? They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime. What is the exact quote?
Well, he said they've got lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
Yeah.
Holy shit, that's classic, Don.
Still looking for those few good people.
That's right. Yeah, right.
Searching high and low, believe me. All right, we got one last story here. This is a little update on Doug Jones and the Roy Moore race. So things are trending in the right direction with the Roy Moore thing. There's some polls that they're putting out from Washington Post trying to gaslight people into believing that Roy Moore is finished. Trump and Roy Moore are equally finished, and it's over for Roy Moore. They put out a poll a couple of days ago saying that Doug Jones was up by 3 on Roy Moore. Again, one of these polls with no methodology, no ability to cross-check whether or not it's a legitimate poll or not. So don't believe it. I mean, it's all fake news. Do not believe it. This is you could tell they're desperate because according to AL.com, thousands of felons across Alabama have registered to vote in recent weeks, according to Pastor Kenneth Glasgow, who's heading up a statewide effort to get felons to the voting booth. Great. They're trying to get the felons out to vote. Awesome. They think they've registered anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 people all over the state to vote. So
wow,
pretty awesome stuff.
That's so dumb because people are spending millions of dollars to do this. To steal this election because it's a special election, so you're probably not going to have crazy turnout for it, and because it didn't work. That they try and ruin this man's life by libeling him. Now they're just going to throw money at him. Now they're just going to crush him with money and register people. And who do you think they're registering and busing in to vote, right? Who do you think that's going to be? You think it's people that care about what's going on? What a sham. And but I think he's going to do it. I think he's going to pull it off. Yeah. Like you said, the Washington Post, there's no methodology. And the past 3 have had Roy Moore up by 5 and 6. And what now? He suddenly, it swung 9% in the past 2 days? I don't think so.
Yeah, predict it. 72% is the latest sale. Roy Moore, yes. So, it's looking like the people who do this for financial gain are pretty well convinced that this is going to be Roy Moore's race to win here in Alabama. So good news there. All right. Yeah. Oh, and the polling, by the way. Yeah. Emerson +6, JMC Analytics +5, WBRC +2, all for Moore. And the only poll in the past 2 weeks showing Jones leading is Washington Post, which is the paper that broke these accusations and these allegations against Roy Moore. So how legitimate do you think their polling is going to be? How fair do you think their question series was? Was it a fair question series, or was it? Or do you plan on voting for civil rights crusader Doug Jones or child raping neo-Nazi KKK bigot Roy Moore? I don't know. I think it's probably something to that effect.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, if the Washington Post is the paper that broke the story about Roy Moore, would any sane person say that their poll is going to be unbiased, especially when, they endorsed Doug Jones, right, and when the people that came forth with those allegations, in some cases had friends that worked for Doug Jones, and they themselves worked for Joe Biden or Barack Obama. I mean, what a joke. Who would take that seriously?
True. Very true. All right, let's do the mailbag real quick and then wrap it up. We're a long show today, not quite 3 hours, but relatively long show. So this is from Volmer, who says, "What are your thoughts regarding the shitposting culture that is spread among the right? We love and embrace shitposting, but why do you think it appears to be mostly right-wing people doing it?" Well, I think there, and this is something I actually talked about with Mr. Mediker a while ago on a stream that him and I did, that a lot of the people who are okay with breaking cultural taboos now, in terms of political taboos, and you're okay with saying and believing things that are transgressive to the prevailing social order, are people who grew up on websites like 4chan and etc. You know, I remember back being like 13, you know, like posting on, no, I was like 12 posting on B, and then like progressing from B to like what was it, like not Fit came when I was like 16, to then like Pole when I was like 18. Like, you know, it all kind of happened from there. And so I think that's, you know, the society we grew up in. We're raised the internet culture, and the people who are okay with being transgressive are okay being transgressive politically as well. Yeah,
I agree with that. I mean, that's the right are the people that have something to say, have something. I mean, because the mainstream, the in culture is left wing and democratic and has rules and everything. I mean, it's necessary that it would be the right that goes. I mean, because it was the same way 50 years ago, but reversed in terms of the establishment was a certain way, and the people that went against it were, you know, the hippy dippy beatnik type people, and that's why they were the shit posters of the day. You know, John Lennon, Bob Dylan, those were actual shit posters because they were actually against the establishment. And now it's just a matter of, I don't know, it's a matter of ideology. I think it's just a matter of who the establishment is.
True. We got a email from one of our friends, one of our friends who's clearly an insane person. A little behind the scenes information, guys. If you are not someone who has their name and email address out there, you don't get these kind of emails, but we do. We get probably like 5 of these like insane people emailing us every day. And this is one of our favorites out there who sends us these insane rambling emails every single day. Nick, you know who I'm talking about.
I do. Our girl.
You lost credibility, Nick? You lost your credibility?
Yeah, I saw that. Our gal, Milla something.
Did you read it?
I skimmed it.
So I made the mistake of clicking on this, and I want to, you know, buy rope now. Fuentes has lost his credibility as a man of truth. He doesn't believe in macroevolution. Doesn't he know that microevolutions accumulate into macroevolution? Life is strange. When you eat a piece of cow and carrot, how do they become part of you? How can flesh of a cow become a part of your flesh? Chemistry. How does a sperm and egg turn into a human being? Strange, but it happens. Or consider metamorphosis. How strange it is, but how real. If we find a way to toy with DNA, we can turn human DNA into ape DNA. Did you know that, Nick?
I did not know that. Wow. That's macroevolution is just like eating.
Yeah. Wow. Same exact process. Wow. That's fucking, I'm enlightened now.
Yeah, I have just as much evidence for eating as I do for macro. What? Yeah. We love our crazy fans that send us things.
Schizophrenia, guys. We love our schizophrenics. We have the best schizophrenics, don't we, folks?
That's right. We have our best schizoids. Paul Town's a schizoid.
Paul Town's not a schizoid.
He is. He did an online test that told him he was a schizoid.
Here's a good line. If ape cannot evolve into man, then how is it possible that changing just a few codes in human DNA can revert him back to an ape?
That's right. That's right. Well, hey, and if that's true. Well, we share a lot of the same DNA with like bananas too, right? And therefore we could change the DNA around a little bit. I mean, we evolved from bananas.
Yeah, definitely. I think there is, I mean, like, this is obviously like a mentally ill way of going about writing, but the point that macroevolution is real, like, is true though. Like that's how human biodiversity came to be. Like, right?
Well, I express skepticism generally. I mean, the human biodiversity comes from microevolution. I think that's how it end up, because that's an evolution within a species versus from one to another, which I have a hard time believing. And again, that's my personal opinion. everybody's giving me shit about it last night, but I've just have not seen solid evidence. And our buddy Brain, do you know Brain Sick something?
Yeah, Blaze, yeah.
16-year-old guy, yeah. He said he was going to send me like a definitive proof of Mac revolution, so I'm waiting on he'll send me something that's a little bit more academic than Milla. And I'll give it a look, and I'll have an open mind about it, but I'm just skeptical.
Yeah. No, I can understand that. And I understand the biblical element of it as well, of course. I don't know. I think that it does make sense, and there is enough fossil record to support the idea that there was human. Yeah, it's dude. We could do a whole show on this. Let's not. Let's not. We'll have. Oh man, if we broke into that, we'd have an angry mailbag next week.
That's right.
Lazarus says, do you see America heading towards Caesarism in the near to medium future because of demographic and electoral winter? Or is the population so devoted to republicanism and democracy that the splintering of the country would happen before a Caesarism would ever be politically feasible? I'm not a fascism when kind of guy. What are you, a cuck? But I just see the comparisons to Rome as apt. That's a good question. What do you think?
Well, that's what Spengler predicted. Spengler predicted that by the year 2000, we would see the beginning of Caesarism. And I don't know. I think there's some truth to that. I think that's the natural course in America in particular when you have a great nation, population, territory, economy, military. That is just the trend, is towards more centralized government. And given some of the other trends that are going on, Caesarism is denoted by when the moneyed class is, what would you call it, is subverted against a new class that is honorable, that cares about virtue, that cares about the country, but is the state. So similar to some other Caesarisms we saw emerge in Europe a little while ago. I think it's ripe. I think we're ripe for Caesarism in our lifetime.
Yeah.
And that'll be accompanied, by the way, by the second religiosity, he says.
Oh, God.
Which I think will come.
Jay says, I agree with that. Maybe not the religion part, but the rest of it, definitely. Jay says, I listened to NR19 and the big mooted Iran debate. Have to side with James. Ha! Blown the fuck out.
Yeah, whatever.
Nick does not understand the scope of Iran's control in the Middle East and their military alliance with China and Russia. See? Told you.
What does it have to do with anything?
To put an end to the senseless killing of American soldiers in the Middle East, we must force Bibi into a binary decision by improving relations with Iran. Yes, this is what I'm saying. We control the other problems in the Middle East by siding with Iran, the greatest power in the Middle East. Yes, Jay, yes. Question is, will Bibi choose the Samson, Will Chamberlain option, or will he choose peace?
Well, I'm not ignoring the scope of Iran's. I don't know why he brought up China and Russia. Nobody disputes that Iran is in an alliance with China and Russia, and those are strong ties. I just dispute, and I didn't say that we should be against Iran. I mean, I just said to make them an ally.
It's fine, Nick. It's fine.
Not so much.
It's fine. The people sided with me. It's fine.
I just felt like the commenter, who I respect a lot less, by the way.
We love Jay. Jay, I just hearted your comment on Patreon, so don't listen to whatever Nick's going to say.
Well, I unheart it, actually. You heart it. Well, I give it a negative heart in my heart.
The Patreon password, so you can't.
I give it a negative heart in my own heart for whoever it is, Jay, who has decided to oppose me.
Jay has sided with the people. Jay is the consensus of the people.
If he's the people, then I'm Caesar. I'm Louis the 14th.
Makes me Brutus. Get wrecked. Metaphorically. Dave says, should you red pill your normie friends and family? If so, who or what is a good starting point? Well, if you're not just sending them the Daily Show right out the gate, you're a cuck. So, no, just kidding. No, I think the best way to do it, if they're naturally conservative inclined, is to think about the issues that they care about. They probably care about guns. They probably care about free speech. They probably care about taxes. And then you can find the polling data from Pew or wherever else on all of those three issues, broken down by racial demographic. and show that to them and say, look, look, I don't hate anybody. And this is where I'm at too. I don't hate anybody. I'm not coming at this political thing from a place of hate or contempt. I just want to protect the American values and protect the values that made this country great. And unfortunately, these people that are coming in don't believe in those values. And once you can start to introduce that to them, then they can start to understand the perils of mass migration and why it's bigger than just, food trucks and people that don't look like you in the local Walmart. There's more to mass migration than that. It's a fundamental undermining of your civilization. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think it starts with what people's interest is. If you have a fiscal conservative, you point to the fiscal impact of these things. If it's somebody who is like a feminist or whatever, I think Islam's a good starting point. I really do believe in like the bridge between alt-right and alt-right, where I've had a lot of friends who you start them off on Milo Yiannopoulos and Gavin McInnes, and they end up more far right than me in some cases. So I think targeting is definitely good. It's not a one size fits all. It's not a cookie cutter approach by no stretch, and it takes patience and persistence. But I think you just have to avoid, the jumping to conclusions. You have to get in the mindset of somebody who is not red pilled. You have to get in the head of somebody who thinks like you did maybe 5 years ago, maybe 6 months ago. In my case, it was 2 years ago. And imagine what kind of an approach would have worked on you, what kind of approach would have been off-putting. I know when I first started getting red pilled, it was Pat Buchanan, it was Ann Coulter. It wasn't Daily Stormer. And a lot of people, I think, make that mistake where I don't think they allow normies the same patience. That it's like, Hitler did nothing wrong, or else you're a cuck. You joked in the beginning. So patience, persistence, and it's all in the approach. So I agree. I'm with you.
Well, and this speaks to a lot of the fighting that people have. Like, people will criticize. People will go after and criticize and scream about somebody like, oh, we hate, TRS, and everybody on TRS sucks, and they don't appeal to the common guy, and they don't appeal to whoever. And it's like, yeah, okay, fine, but that's like not what their mission is. Like something like what we're doing, our mission is to, convert people, to bring people in, to red pill people, to get the conservative who's going to say, oh, I'll listen to this podcast, and to really make them aware of these trends and things that are happening in society. If you're listening to like the, dude, the any of these TRS podcasts, for the most part, I don't want to speak for all of them, but most of them are not like geared towards that audience. We just have different demographics. It's like fan service for people who are already red pilled, right? So you can scream it and yell at somebody like, talk to somebody who is doing, whatever they do politically. You can say, oh, you're not doing enough to convince, the moderates and convince people who don't know about demographics and everything. It's like, well, maybe they're just doing something different. Maybe that's not what their goal is. Maybe their goal is to galvanize the base. Maybe their goal is to provide more rhetorical ammo to the base so that they can use to convert other people. Like, you have to be aware that people are just going to do kind of their own thing. You can't really tone police. Now, that isn't to say that we can't have some regard for, how you behave publicly. That's absolutely important.
Yeah, that's a little different. I agree with that generally about people in the alt-right, because they're serving a different, like you said, they're serving a different purpose in the movement.
And like whether you like it or not, like Lauren Southern can post a video about the migrant crisis and get like 400,000 views, and that's going to lead people to start looking into that and looking more into the what that means. And just because you're not saying, oh, physical removal, send them all back, get rid of everybody, which is what we say, which is really a fairly moderate position. But just because you're not, that's a bad example. Just because you're not going like super radical with something, doesn't mean that it's bad or cucked or whatever.
True.
And this is what Anglin said in that piece he wrote about you.
Yeah, that's right. Good old. Yeah, I appreciated that. I posted about that on Gab.
Yeah, I don't know if you link to them on Twitter, will you get banned?
I don't want to try. I don't want to test it.
True. All right. Well, I think. Oh, one more question. Is hunting trad? Would you encourage or discourage this in the current year?
Do you hunt, James?
I don't. I have in the past, but I don't do it very much. I'm going to this winter and spring is actually I'm planning to, but I'm a big fan of the sportsman life. I think it's a very it's kind of one of the luxuries of modern life that we are not forced to hunt out of necessity, right? That to eat, we don't have to go out and hunt. So to make the choice to go out in nature, to stalk the animal, to kill the animal, and to do it mercilessly or do it mercifully in a way that is humane and everything. And I think there's a certain beauty to that, and people would be like, "Oh, you fucking fag," but like, I think there's a certain respect for nature and certain beauty of that. And so, yeah, definitely, I think hunting is very traditional. It's a very good hobby to have. It's a hobby that I think people should take up more.
Yeah, I think hunting.
Actually, no, people shouldn't take it up more because that'll like crowd it, and then the permits will cost more. So, yeah, hunting totally sucks. Don't go do it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's cool. I always had a problem because my dad is very against it. My dad lived in the city. He was never a big hunter. His brothers hunt, and he always took the position that going out and killing animals who aren't bothering anybody and like for sport isn't great. And I see that argument kind of, but then I also see your argument where it's like, it is part of the circle of life and it's part of our kind of place in nature. So I don't know. I could go either way. I see both sides of it. I don't think I would like not hunt. I'd probably hunt if somebody asked me to go, but I don't know. It's not really my jazz. I'm more of a suburbs kind of a guy. So we're not really in tune with nature. We don't fish. We don't hunt. It's just not really in the cards for us folk over here. We don't have the beautiful nature that you guys have up in the Northwest. It's fucking concrete jungle over here. But
yeah, we have the Western privilege. Yeah, no, that is one of the nicest things. That's one of the reasons I'm kind of resistant to leave the West. I don't really want to leave this area, but things may force us to do so. I don't know. That's something we got to talk about actually. Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, I don't. The thing is, people don't just go hunt. Like, there's a misconception, right? There's a misconception that people just go out in the woods and just go fucking blast on fucking deer, just fuck them up, and like just go kill them for fun and like as some kind of power trip thing. And that's maybe true for a few individuals out there, but for the vast majority of people, like that's not why they go and hunt. They go, and if they're gonna take a shot, they're very humane about it. They want to make a kill shot. They don't want the animal to suffer. They want to limit the suffering of the animal. And the thing is, dude, like animals suffer way more in a slaughterhouse than they do in the woods. And by the way, a predator element is necessary to maintain proper conservation. Mm-hmm. I mean, this happens all the time where you'll let species. They do this. They've done this before. They'll ban hunting, and then what do you know? The deer species explodes, and then a year later they all die off because there's not enough resources. So we are lucky in this country to have a very good Department of the Interior that does a very good job at game management. Usually they usually do a good job, and they know, okay, how many game there are in a certain area. Is it being overhunted? Is it being underhunted? What do we need to do to prevent extinction? And they do a pretty good job about that. So I'm inclined to believe them when they say that, hey, we need people to go hunt this or that species. And dude, stuff like coyotes, they're just a pest. If you just want to go out and cruise around and take a 22 and blast coyotes, like out here in the rural part of Washington State, that is a pastime for people. It really is. I know it probably sounds surreal for people out in the Midwest or the cities, or not in the Midwest, but people who are in cities or surreal. But no, you'll go out to some of the little farming towns around here. You'll see street legal like ATVs, or even not street legal, people just drive on the street anyways. The little like golf cart ATVs with like gun racks on the back. 3 rifles just sitting in the back, parked at the convenience store.
That's awesome.
No big deal.
Yeah, we don't have that. We don't really have that in the Midwest. Yeah. Well, like near the city, but yeah, I get it. It's part of the ecosystem. So yeah, I see both sides.
Well, in Chicago, you have people with vehicles and weapons going around, but they're not hunting game. They're hunting gang. They're hunting gang members.
Different kind of hunting goes on over here. Yeah.
Very true. Alrighty, well, I think that just about does it. Thanks for listening, everybody. If you haven't already, like I said, we got to remind you, we're going to be selling out here in the next week. I almost guarantee it, of the iconic America First mug, the 16-ounce America First mug. We're probably going to have to order another run of these because they were so popular. We're also going to be doing here in the next month or so, we got plans to do the coffee tumbler. We're going to be doing the coffee mug. So, or the travel mug, I should say. So if you like your drinks, your sips, you want to take your sips on the go, we'll be doing one of those. We'll also be doing, I think probably like a Chad Nationalism blender bottle. So, stay on the lookout for that. That'll be a good one. We got plans for that, but yeah, definitely get your coffee mugs now. Get the America First mug. It's $9.99. It's a good deal. $9.99 for the iconic 16-ounce mug. That's a better deal than anywhere else. So, go ahead and get that from amfirstmedia.com/shop. We have less than half in stock now. Go ahead and pick that up, and you will not be disappointed. It does not, unfortunately, come with a weird film at the bottom, Nick. So, gotta add that yourself.
Yeah, I'll have to just not wash it with months of use, so I can recreate that effect.
Exactly. And some late breaking news now. There will be a protest tomorrow. If you're in the DC area, there's going to be a protest tomorrow at Lafayette Square in front of the White House to protest the Kate Steinle verdict. It's not an alt-right demonstration. I'm getting this from Twitter here. All people of all groups that want to stand and protest the Kate Steinle verdict are welcome. Lafayette Square, 2 p.m. tomorrow is where that protest is going to be. So we're talking about activism, talking about making your voice heard. This is the way to do it. So if you're in the DC area, definitely go check that out. Again, 2 p.m. tomorrow, Lafayette Square, right by the White House. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. That about does it for us. Thanks for watching, everybody, or listening. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Thanks for watching to our friends behind the paywall. If you are behind the paywall, we do, of course, appreciate that. If you want to get behind the paywall, patreon.com/America First Media to watch the show live. Nick, anything special coming up this week in America First? I know I always put you on the spot with this question.
Yeah, no, it's we're gonna do Christmas music, I believe, starting on Monday. Everybody always nags me about the intro music because it's black music, they say, and my mom even, she was like, Nicholas, the way you talk about race, it's really kind of hypocritical for you to have like that weird like hip hop kind of sample. I was like, Mom, you racist! Like, I think to even suggest such a thing, but. Yeah, we're changing up. We're doing Christmas music, and might have a weekly sweat reunion sometime in the future. I don't know if that'll be this week or later, but it'll be. We'll have our Beardson, our America, Sean, Paul Town, the whole gang will be back, and but that'll be sometime soon. I don't know if that'll be this week.
Ooh, that'll be interesting. Yeah, you gotta get on the playlist that I use for my Spotify, my intro music. Oh, I just gave it away. It's on Spotify. You gotta get on the playlist because that's where I mine my intro music from, and people have very, very positive reactions to my intro. Changes every time. It's always something new, always something different.
Yeah, I got to get on that because I just have the same shit every week, and even for me, it gets to be too much. Yeah.
Well, maybe we could make a some Christmas trap remix that would fit your musical themes.
Yeah,
we'll see. All right. Well, hey, thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for listening. And as always, we'll see you on Wednesday, or we'll see you at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern for America First, upcoming this week, and we'll see you back here on this program next Wednesday. Thanks for listening. See you later.